Good afternoon. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the show. I just checked the news. It still looks like it's a quiet holiday. Not much going on. I also don't see much on Twitter. So that means more Google topics until guests come on, if they come on. We've been doing philosophy lately. So today I got it to generate some psychology topics, and we'll see what that produces. And don't forget New Year's Eve. If you have nothing else to do, you can come ring in the new year with us, and then another all-day New Year's Day stream. Okay, let's see what Google gave me to talk about today. Perception and consciousness. We did that yesterday, kind of. Is the consciousness a product of the brain, or is there something more to it? Do we all perceive the world in the same way? Can machines ever truly be? We did all these. Do near-death experiences offer insights into the nature of consciousness and death? Maybe consciousness, because any experience is a phenomena of consciousness. But they tell us absolutely nothing about what happens after death. So I don't see how they can. How do our dreams and hallucinations challenge our understanding of reality? I think it exposes that all of what we experience as reality is in some sense a dream or hallucination. It's a product of our brain. Because the reality you think you're experiencing right now is a simulated reality that your brain is producing for you. From all, like, we perceive way more than we take in way more than we can consciously process. So we're perceiving all kind of things that our brain filters and puts together into what we experience as reality. And so who knows what's happening during dreams? It seems like it's kind of doing the same thing. Your brain is simulating some kind of reality, like some kind of consistent reality. Oh, I had a dream last night I want to talk about. It was one of those dreams that felt very real. And when you wake up, you're like, wow, that was just a dream. Why can't it be real? I was living in this apartment and I had a roommate, and the apartments were part of this school, like this public school. And a lot of the teachers lived in these apartments, but you could, like, normal people could also live in them too. And my roommate was a teacher at this school. And he came home from school one day and he was telling me about the latest activity that the kids had to participate in. And it was trying to teach the kids to be anti-woke. And like the kids would, like, each in this activity, like the different kids would take the role of the woke person, the woke scold, and they would have to scold and berate all the other kids for not being woke enough in an obnoxious a way as possible, so that the kids could experience what the moral self-righteousness of the woke. And then as they would do this, the kids would react to it, and it would teach them to be, like, it would show them how awful woke people can be and teach them that they don't want to be that way. And I was so excited. And I went over to the school and I sat in on the classes and I was watching this happen in action. And I was like, this is wonderful. This is an awesome thing. Why, like, we need to do this in more schools. And I was so excited that the tide of wokeness had turned and the schools were actively, like, exposing kids to the worst behaviors of the woke so that they could see wokeness for what it is and become anti-woke. And then I woke up and I was like, why did that have to be a dream? So while that was happening, that was reality. Like, I really thought this was happening in schools. It seemed so real. And I got so excited. The emotions I felt are the same emotions that I would have felt in real life if I had heard about this happening. So I recommend everybody do what my dream says if you're involved in the educational system. I woke up with the feeling of excitement that we were finally making progress after all these years, and then had to like face the realization that it was a dream. But it doesn't have to be. Y'all could there's no reason you couldn't implement this in real life. So I guess that's my little tangent on dreams. And hallucinations, I've done plenty of enough psychedelics to have. That's an experience you acquire very early, like your first few acid or mushroom trips. You have to learn the difference between what's your mind, what's the drug making your mind produce something, and what's really happening. And it's constantly reality testing and reality checking. Like, I remember we went for a walk at night, and we were walking down the street, and there was this man walking toward us with his daughter or some little girl, and he was holding her hand, and they were coming toward us. So we're like, and you know, when you're tripping, you're paranoid that everybody could tell. So, and it was dark, like they couldn't even see us really. We could barely see them. And we're like, we gotta act normal. There's other humans approaching us. We have to act normal. We can't let them know we're tripping, blah, blah, blah. And we kept getting closer and closer, and they kept getting closer to us. And finally, when we got close enough, we realized that it was a street sign with another smaller street sign next to it. But from a distance, it looked like two people walking toward us. And it was so real. Like, we actually thought these were people. And we were like adjusting our whole behavior so that they wouldn't be able to tell we were on drugs. And then it was just an inanimate object. So stuff like that. You're on drugs, your mind is, and I guess that could happen without the drugs at night. You can mistake a sign for a person, but particularly when you're on psychedelics. So it was constantly having to figure out what's reality and what's hallucination. And you get really good at like figuring out ways to check for reality after a while. Free will, we did yesterday. How do concepts like fate and destiny play into our understanding of free will? What does shrooms feel like? Shrooms are intense. Like LSD for me, it's these little it's like a little square piece of paper, and you put it on your tongue and it dissolves. And it's like this body rush, but it's pleasant and it's social. I could still think and more or less be aware of what's going on. And with shrooms, because we got ours out of the cow fields, so it was hard to know the dose. Like, you could have a big giant mushroom cap. Sometimes we'd eat them, and sometimes we'd make big pots of Kool-Aid with lots of sugar to get that. And even then, it still tasted nasty. So either way, you don't really know what the concentration of psilocybin to Kool-Aid is. Or if you're eating a cap, you really don't know how much is in it. You can have like really big caps that you eat, and you trip okay. And I remember one night I said, I'm just going to eat this one little cap. A couple of little caps, and I tripped harder than any big cap I've eaten. So you can't tell by the size of the cap how concentrated the dose is going to be. So you're kind of taking a risk every time. And maybe I got some really strong doses, but it was very, very intense. It was hard to be around people that weren't also tripping. Much more anxiety and paranoia. My worst trips happened on shrooms, and they were real shamanic. They would take me like deep into myself. I would see archetypes. I remember one trip I was sitting in my living room with. I love to sit in a dark room with the lights off and play music, like on my Walkman or my CD player with the headphones. And it would really take me deep into the music. I could kind of tune out the physical world and go deep into myself and take these shamanic journeys. And there was this figure that came to me. It was this Native American. I could sense him, like he was really, it was this big like head of him over the, it wasn't a fire, it was a mantle, but not a fireplace. It was this shelf that operated like a mantle. And he was like hovering over that mantle. And he was Grandfather Wind was his name. And he had come to give me wisdom. And he wasn't verbally speaking to me. He was like projecting his thoughts and wisdom into me, and I was communing with him. And we used to go out, and we have a camp way out in the woods in the middle of nowhere where it's dark and there's nobody around. And we used to go out there and take our drumming music and like our trippy ambient shamanic music, and we'd do the mushrooms out there, and we called it a kiva. And we'd sit in the camp and in the dark, and all of these like nature spirits and shamanic spirits would come to us, and we'd all feel like we could be, me and my friend were sitting in the dark, we have our music going, and I would experience this being or whatever come to me and start interacting with me, and I would talk to my friend, and he was experiencing the same thing. Now it could be slightly different because it's produced by his brain, but it was the illusion that we were both encountering the same phenomena while we were tripping in the dark. And my worst trip that happened, this one actually had me praying to Jesus. I had some of the high school kids, like I was in college, but because I hung out with kind of the drug crowd, there was a lot of high school kids in it. And a couple of little high school kids had dropped by my house earlier that day, and they had a little McDonald's Happy Meal pail filled with mushroom tea. And they were going from house to house and giving all their friends a little bit of the tea. So they stopped by my house and they gave me some of the tea. And I was so excited because I was going to get to trip that night. And I went in my bedroom. I put on some Cocteau Twins music, and I was all ready to have a good trip. And the boys left and they went make their rounds. And it was just my mom home. She was in the living room watching TV. And my bedroom was kind of the first door off of the living room. And I was listening to my music, and all of a sudden, like my brain started talking to me, and it took the form of demons, like these demonic faces and creatures inside of my brain. And they started talking to me, and they're like, ha, 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 we have you now. You're at our mercy tonight. We're going to fuck with you. And I'm like, it's parts of yourself, but they feel autonomous. So it's parts of yourself that you can dialogue and interact with as if they were third parties. Even though in the back of my mind, I knew this was all in my brain, but they were independent from me at the time I was on the drug. And I was like, oh no, don't do this. God, not tonight. I thought I was going to have a nice little trip. And then I remember them saying, we'll let you off easy this time. But in the future, every time you do this, know what you're getting into. And then, so that kind of had me anxious from the start, from the trip. So I tried to like calm myself down. I played some music. I sat on my bed. I like hung out in my room and tried to be peaceful. And then whatever TV show my mom was watching, they had a female on there that sounded just like my mom. And it was a cop show. And this was the dialogue. And I thought this was happening in the living room. Ma'am, we're here for your son. Officer, what did he do? It's drugs, ma'am. And I'm like, holy shit, the cops are at my house and they're in the living room talking to my mom, and they're about to come in my bedroom and arrest me. And I was panicked. I was sweating. I was hyperventilating. I was having a full-blown panic attack. And I remember I went and I sat on my bed and I put like the big quilt over my head. And my bed was next to the window with the blinds. And I was like, it was like in that movie Friday when he's in the chicken coop. I was like peeking out of my blinds, like every 2 seconds. I was doing this to see if there were like sirens in the driveway. And I knew they were coming for me any second. And I was praying to Jesus. I'm like, Jesus, please, I don't believe in you. But if you're real, please make this just be a bad trip and not really happening in reality. And if you do that, I'll go to church this Sunday. Like I even made a bargain to go to church. And I sat on that bed, I don't know how long. It felt like hours. It was probably like 15 or 20 minutes. And then they never did come in my room. So I finally got the courage to like go and open the door real slowly. And I opened it and I kind of listened into the living room. And I didn't hear anything. And I could still hear the TV. So I called out to my mom. I said, Mom. And she said, yeah, what? I said, are you by yourself? She said, yeah. And then that's when I knew it was all in my head. I had taken whatever I was hearing from that TV show and created this scenario that there were cops in the living room talking to my mom about to come and arrest me. It was scary. And no, I did not go to church like I promised Jesus. And I stopped believing in him after that. I'm like, oh, good. It was just a bad trip. I didn't need to do the praying to Jesus thing after all. So that was kind of bad on me, I guess. So that's kind of what they're like. That's a little taste of them. They're intense, and they make your brain do things that you have no control over. And they bring up parts of yourself that you can interact and commune with. And if you don't have the experience tripping that I do, you could easily mistake it for actual beings or entities. No, I would not do any I haven't done them since I left Louisiana the first time back in the late 90s to go out west. That's the last time. I didn't do any psychedelics in California or Vegas or anywhere else. The only thing I did in Seattle was weed. And that's the last time I've done them. And after all the trauma that I've been through since, I'm scared to do them because they put you in, they like put you face to face with your demons. Like your demons are right here in vivid technicolor, and there's no way to escape them. And it's at the most intense. And I have too many demons that I've acquired since I did them last, and I don't want to face them. Like I have enough time facing them sober. I don't want to have to face those demons on any kind of drug. Even sometimes when I do the right kind of weed or the wrong kind of weed, I get a little taste of like what it would be like to face those demons using a psychedelic. And even that is more than I want to experience. The first time I did acid, he's asking if I think it was beneficial overall. The first time I did acid, I was glad that I did it. And I'm like, okay, that's a psychedelic experience. It's not as scary as they made it out when I was a teenager. I was probably like 20 when I first did it. And it was a positive experience, and I'm glad I did it. And I had this idea that like everyone, and not really everyone, but because people with mental health issues should not be doing psychedelics at all, I don't think. But at the time, I was more or less a normal person. And I'm like, this is a positive experience. I think as many people as want to have this experience should have at least one psychedelic experience in their life. So they'll have something to contrast normal, ordinary life to. And I did it many times after that. And it was mostly positive, except for the bad trips. But at some point, I think you get all you're going to get out of it. And then doing it is just more of the same after a while. And I definitely reached that point. And so I think I got what I needed from them. I think it was overall beneficial. Also, I don't think it was necessary to do. I think the stuff I got from it, I'd be perfectly okay living life without having that stuff. So it was kind of like lagniappe, which that's a Cajun word meaning a little something extra. It was kind of just an extra bonus, but it's not anything. There's nothing essential to my life that I got from it that I could not have gotten in other ways. But I am glad that I had that experience. And what do I think about the claims that they are helpful for mental health? Here in Seattle, they have trained psychedelic therapists, and you still have to acquire the drug yourself because it's not legal here. Like Oregon decriminalized all of their stuff, but Seattle has not. So you still have to acquire your own drug, whether it's LSD, mushrooms, but you can pay. It's like $2,000 or $3,000, and they will come to your house, and they will trip sit with you through the trip, and they use their therapeutic techniques to kind of guide it into the issues that you want to work on therapeutically instead of just a recreational trip. And so that is a legitimate service here in Seattle that they are, like mental health professionals are starting to incorporate. I know that there's people that take these ayahuasca retreats. They go to South America and do ayahuasca, or some of them go to like Arizona or somewhere and do peyote in the desert. Like professionals, like working tech bros and working professional white collar people. And they do that for mental health, or ostensibly for mental health reasons. So there are people that are exploring psychedelics for personal growth and personal improvement. There's also the thing called microdosing, which I'm actually interested in, and I might consider trying. A lot of autistic people, there's a community out there, and they have a website. You just have to Google it. I don't remember what it's called. Yeah, it is crazy money, and I could easily do it. Like I could totally be a trip sitter. I am a psychedelic peer. That is definitely in my lived experience background. So I could do that for someone, but I have no desire, and I definitely wouldn't charge 2 or 3K. So if you do want someone to trip sit with you and have it be a little more therapeutic, contact me. I'll charge you way less than 2K. I wouldn't even charge you 1K. Yes, that's what I was about to say. I know some people that are trying to get something like that started for it's going to be targeted at kind of the money crowd because it's going to be expensive, but like that's going to run psychedelic retreats here in the US. And so microdosing is something that autistic people, or I found out about it from this autistic psychedelic community. And if they do just a slight little bit of LSD, like every morning, it helps. And that's another thing about me and LSD with the autism and the neurodivergence and the ADHD and all the other weird brain stuff. When I was on LSD, my chemicals felt completely in balance for the first time in my life. I could, whatever I thought I could say, my brain and my body were in sync. I could think of something and articulate it very fluidly and smoothly. I could I didn't have like the motoric goofiness that I have from the dyspraxia and all that. It's like whatever my brain was doing, my body could instantly follow it, and I didn't have this mismatch between brain and body like I do now. Now I did still rock, but that was part of having all. You have an enormous amount of energy too. Like it's the most energy I've ever had in my life, and so your body's constantly like wanting to move or rock or jump or bounce or whatever. So my chemicals felt completely balanced, and my brain felt like it worked at its peak in the way that it was supposed to work without all of the neurodivergent stuff that impacts it and kind of gets in the way. And so I can see where maybe microdosing a small amount each day could maybe allow autistic or neurodivergent people to function a little more smoothly. I'm scared to microdose shrooms just because of the dosage issue and how intense they are. If I microdosed anything, I'd probably rather it be LSD. I don't know. I had some good experiences on shrooms. Like they were intense, really intense experiences. Shrooms was not. It was. None of my shrooms trips were recreational or like a little kiddie ride. They all took me very deep into myself, and I faced some really intense parts of myself. So because of that intensity, I already like have an intense enough life and nervous system. Because of that intensity, I kind of like am shying away from shrooms just in general because I've had so many intense experiences on them. And LSD is a little less intense. Even when I smoked weed, I didn't like the really super strong concentrated stuff. I tried to get something like more mid-range so that the intensity wasn't too overwhelming. That's what Machine was saying. They have chocolate bars that. Oh, now you're playing the devil, the satanic figure, because you're the one sitting on the shoulder, tempting me with chocolate bars now. It is strong. It's like some of it's like what 6. I used to do mostly the cartridges, which are concentrated. Some of them were like 70-80% concentrated. And even the weed itself, like the leaf that you smoke, is 25-28%. Like growing up, the dirt weed we used to get, like the cheap stuff from Mexico, was like, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15%, and it got us as high as anything. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that'll be cool. Okay, well, Jack might come on, so we'll have a guest. Let me see some of these other questions while I have them up. Relationships and morality. Oh, this is something that comes up a lot on these panels, I notice. What is the nature of love? Is it a biological urge? a social construct, or something else entirely. I talked the other day about the first and second factor, and the second factor was like the environmental and social influences. But I started thinking about it, and even that, like we take it in from the outside, comes from other people and intersubjectivity, but it it gets into us and it becomes memory, which is internal and becomes part of our brain. So really, like both factors are ultimately internal. One originates internally and one originates externally, but they both become drive, urge, memory. And so even like people that influence us or conditioning or education, it's still it doesn't really have the ability to affect us or influence us until it becomes encoded as memory. So things like social construct and stuff, I'm very skeptical of, because ultimately a social construct's not going to have any effect on you if you don't perceive it, if your brain doesn't experience it as that construct or put it together in that particular way, and if it doesn't get internalized as some kind of memory that it can refer back to and draw on for the future. So I think everything's, I lean more toward nature than nurture, because even the nurture becomes a part of a part of our nature in order to be effective. I have experienced, Freud identified two types of love, and if you haven't read Plato's Symposium, that's also a good like reflection on love. Freud has what's called the narcissistic and the analytic, and the narcissistic is that's the love that's a reflection of our own self, like our ego, the energy that's normally locked up in like used to sustain the ego gets transferred to another person because it's an external reflection of what the energy is trying to kind of support in the ego. And it's the narcissistic one that was the guy up here. It's very intense. It's like it's that feeling that you have, like you've met a mirror image of yourself, or you have so much of an identity in common, and it's kind of like partly interacting with the other person, but partly interacting with the part of yourself. And then the analytic kind is what I had in Mike, which is like there's not that intensity to it because there's not necessarily that identity there, but it's a deep appreciation and respect for the person, and you both support and want what's best for the other. And like the more you can enhance their well-being, the better you feel, and the more your well-being gets enhanced. So it's this feedback loop of mutual support and like helping to increase each other's growth and development and well-being. So I've felt both of those. I definitely take the second one over the first. The first one is kind of the falling in love, where you kind of lose part of yourself. And the second one is almost all upside and no downside. It's having that really strong, like your family. If you have a healthy family, that it might be this really strong, nurturing and loving support system, and that person takes on an importance to you psychologically that like nobody else has. So I've had both. I don't know if I think I'm kind of burnt out. I don't know if I have the ability to have either of those types again. They really take a lot out of my brain, my body, my soul, even though I'm a monist and don't recognize the separate existence of a soul. I'm speaking metaphorically. How do our personal biases and experiences influence our moral judgments? That's a good one, Google. Well, the first thing I think of when I think of biases and experience, biases I think are, I don't know, some combination of innate and acquired based on experience. But all of that comes together to form kind of this predictive model that your brain builds up through experiences, while maybe around and inclusive of any innate biases. So you have this kind of template that you work off of from the past that's built. I mean, it can be changed and revised as you go through life. And I think that, again, that's that like first, second factor combination where some of it's biological, but some of it's from social influences, and it becomes this memory in our brain that we work off of when we're faced with new situations. We refer it to our previous model. I mean, our current model. And so I think the model we work off of influences how we frame and conceive of moral situations and how we choose to act in response to them. And that model that we're referring to do this is composed of or based off of our biases and experiences. So that's the relation, I think, between bias, experience, and moral judgment. That's my short answer anyway. What are the psychological factors that contribute to prejudice and discrimination? Tribalism, our monkey brain, the Dunbar number, which is, it's a theoretical number of the amount of people that our brains can keep up with at any one time and see as individual people before they just become the masses. And the number said about 150. I think mine's probably a little larger. I've kept up with thousands of people in my life, but that's because I'm a people person. People really make a strong impression on my brain, and it's hard for me to forget them once they do that. But like realistically, we can keep up with about 150 people. That's why smaller communities seem to work better for the benefits that community can provide, like mental health, mutual support, network, etc. And then once you scale beyond the Dunbar number, it becomes a little more transactional and impersonal. And so I think some of the factors are just the limits on our brain from being primates and mammals, and like being wired to function in small tribes. Our evolution has not, it's going to take eons and eons for us to, if it ever evolves beyond that. So I think it's just the evolutionary residue of tribalism and Dunbar number. And like we keep up with, we form relations to the people that we can relate to and identify with, and people that we can't. And there's a little more of a barrier. Like me and the awfuls, the affluent white female liberal people up here. I'm sorry, affluent women, female liberal, not necessarily white, but most of them are white. Anyway, there's huge barriers of like relating and identifying with them. Our psychology is just so different. So that contributes to some prejudice and discrimination on both sides. They hate males from the South. I struggle with females are more female oriented, because even the soy boys here operate off of female principles. There's a class divide, there's a gender divide, there's a cultural divide. So there's too many divides. I think once you have too many divides, it becomes harder and harder to relate and identify with that person, unless you have the ability to kind of find the common humanity underneath, which that's my big barrier with the people up here, is they're like robots. They're cold. There's no warmth. They're very cold and technocratic. And it's hard for me to find anything like any kind of common humanity in them, because they either don't have it or they have it so hidden away that I can't access it. And so that creates some of the difficulty to relating to them. So I think the more you relate and identify, the less prejudice and discrimination. And the less you're able to relate and identify, the likelier you are to fall back on superficial, like snap judgments that we all take as shortcuts when we can't fill in with the experience of actually getting to know the person. And discrimination, like, which is really just in-group bias or in-group preference versus out-group preference. You're going to have a natural bias of preference toward people that you consider in your group or tribe that you can relate and identify with than you will with people outside of that. And that's just normal. Like things are going to be more familiar to you where you grew up than they are in some strange foreign land, because that's what your brain got attached to and formed its experiences off of. Can empathy and compassion be learned, or are they innate traits? I've known enough sociopaths and narcissists to say that for some people, no, they can never be learned. You're either born with it or you're not. I think it can be nurtured. I think you have to have the tendency for it. Like a young kid that has a tendency to be loving toward animals or pets or protective of it versus one that has the inclination to torture or abuse pets. And I think you can nurture empathy and compassion if the seeds of it is there. But I think the seeds have to be there. And if they're not, I don't think you can instill it in somebody. How does technology shape our relationships and social interactions? Man, I could do a whole stream on this. My first experience with technology in my lifetime, growing up, the biggest technological tool that we had at our disposal was the telephone, and it was absolutely indispensable. It allowed me to talk to friends that I didn't have access to on a daily basis and develop deeper bonds and relationships with them long distance. It allowed us to coordinate and make plans to interact in person. Telephone then was what the internet is today. It was the connection with the outside world. It's how you conducted business. It's how you develop personal relationships. And so I used the telephone like most of the first half of my life. And then when the computer came along, it was dial-up, AOL. That put me in touch. That was another way of connecting, and I could connect with way more people than I could by telephone. And it put me in touch with people from all over the world. And I eventually met people on the West Coast. I left Louisiana. I moved on the West Coast. Almost every single person in my life after 1998, 99, I met through a computer. I almost stopped meeting people in person after that. And you would meet them on a computer first, and then you would make plans to go have coffee or meet at a bar or go see a movie or whatever. So the relationship started through the medium of text. You could send pictures back and forth. There wasn't a lot of video chat back then. It was mostly text and images. And then through textual conversation, it might move to the telephone, or you just might move directly to in person. And so it shaped the way that you met new people and brought those new people into your life. And so before that, most people you met were either from an activity you were involved in, like a hobby or leisure activity, or school or work, or through your friends or family. And that's how you met people. Or sometimes if you go to a bar, you can meet strangers. But most of the people you met were through some existing network or activity that you were involved in. And the internet let you meet people outside of those circles. And you can meet people anywhere that was using the same technological medium that you were. And fast forward to COVID, because I didn't do any video chatting at all before COVID. I didn't even know what Zoom was. And I discovered Zoom during COVID. Discord, things like Discord. I started getting active on Twitter. And I started finding new forms of social media to meet new types of people and interact with. But it wasn't that different from what was happening on AOL. Zoom and live streaming just feels like the next level of AOL, which was chat based. But I had that same sensation of, wow, I can connect with people now from all over the world that I couldn't before. Even living in a city the size of Seattle, I wasn't meeting the amount of people that I was meeting from my bedroom during COVID through Zoom. And I could target the people I was actually looking for. People, neurodivergent people, gifted or like intellectuals, people. And then when the anti-woke stuff came along and the IDW, I could find people that were politically aligned with me around the same values that I had. Before that, I was just looking for interesting people to talk to. And then I could target it to specific types of interesting people. And that's still kind of what I'm doing with the streaming. The whole point of the stream, really, I've said it over and over, the main purpose is to build community. This streaming is one point of contact in a larger community. We have Discord. We do activities throughout the week, like movies. We're going to get some games started. We have other stuff planned for the new year. We're working on that movie. And so the idea is to have a very robust round the clock community that you can access all week long. And these little daily streams we do is just like one little window into that. And so I'm trying to position the stream where it's going to draw the people that I'm trying to draw into the community and filter out the people that I don't think are going to benefit from being part of this particular community, or that the community will benefit from having in it. Because I want people that are here to, I'm very much into collaborating and co-creation. So I very much want people that are here to build and contribute, and let's all create something together. And I've gotten there in the past, so I have faith that I'll get here. I'll turn this one into something too. But it's the timeline that I'm not really in control of. It just depends on the right people showing up at the right time, which has been happening, and I'm grateful to everybody that is involved. Mental health and well-being. What are the ethical implications of using technology to diagnose and treat mental health? I know during COVID, I did a couple of telehealth appointments with my medical doctor, and I was very impressed with the convenience and the efficiency of it. And then I don't use a therapist anymore. I haven't since COVID started, but I did meet with him once during COVID to kind of check in, and we did it online. And it was exactly like having an office visit, except I didn't have to leave my house. So also, again, the convenience and the efficiency. I use technology in the mental health work I do because all of my clients I see online. I don't have any in person, and I wouldn't be able to do the work I do. Like, that's what I learned during COVID, because I lost my job 3 days before we had to go in lockdown. So I lose the job. I have no idea what I'm going to do next, and then lockdown gets called, and we have to stay indoors, and so I couldn't even get out and look for work. So I had to figure out a path forward from that point. And I learned how to use the technology like chat, video, etc., Discord, to kind of transfer the work I was doing in person to people online. And I learned how to do I was doing the same type of peer counseling. I was facilitating the same type of groups, the community building, all of that I could do online, just like or even better than I was doing in person. And I was doing it so well. I was doing it better than any in-person job I've had. I was helping more people. I was helping more of the type of people that I'm good at helping and that I was looking to help in the first place. I was doing better groups. The communities were taking off more than they did in person. And it taught me that I can do better when I'm working independently for myself. And I'm not being under employer only slowed me down, because you have to work at their pace under the parameters that they set. And I was able to do so much more once I was freed from that. And I was just free to do it my way and help the people in the way I know how, and the people I was best at helping. And so COVID taught me all of that. And I've been using technology to do that ever since. So I think it's asking about the ethical implications. I would need an example. Let me ask Google. Because I don't see any ethical implications I have to worry about. Implication of now diagnose I don't do, because I'm only a peer counselor. We don't do with diagnoses. So I'll ask it about the treatment of. Ooh, it's thinking. This one's taking a long time. Okay, here we go. The one it brought up was, one significant ethical implication of using technology to treat mental health concerns the potential for bias and discrimination. So they're worried that the tech and the AI and the algorithms are going to discriminate. I don't see how. Okay, they're talking about things like mental health apps, chat bots, diagnostic tools, which I'm not going to try to speak to. So they're talking about the automated technology to help. Like if I know they have these little apps you could like, it pretends like you're talking to a therapist or whatever. I don't know anything about those. I don't use those. I'm a human. I don't know where bias and discrimination would show up in the work that I do, because people find me through my website and then we interface in person. So I'm in control of whether there's bias or discrimination happening. And I only work with the people that want to work with me, that think that they could get something out of working with me, and that I think I'm able to help. So if they don't want to work with me, they're not going to make a good client anyway. And if I don't think that there's anything I can do to help them, I don't want them to waste their money on me. So the bias discrimination kind of works itself in that initial vetting process. Here's some specific examples. A chat bot trained on text data containing stereotypes about anxiety in women. I don't think this is a stereotype personally, but I'm willing to limit it to the awfuls. Might misinterpret a man's symptoms as not being serious enough, delaying his diagnosis and treatment. So what are they saying? Like a chat bot is going to prioritize the fact that somebody's male, and even though he's talking about the same stuff that women might talk about, the chat box is going to say is like not going to expedite his getting treatment. Like that seems like a very easy fix. Just write something in the chat box that ignores gender and focuses on content, and doesn't use the marker that he's male to give a different response. Like doesn't prioritize that marker and adjust the response according to that. That seems like it would be very easy to program into or out of a chatbot. An AI-powered therapy app with data skewed towards certain socioeconomic backgrounds might not recognize the signs of depression in someone from a marginalized community. What does that mean? So if apps are mostly geared toward rich people, rich white people, let's say, and there's somebody that's poor and black using the app, the AI might not recognize the signs of depression. It seems like it would be very easy to train the app to recognize the signs of depression independent of any other like noise that gets thrown in there. Like they could focus and pull out. So if the person, what would the marginalized person be saying that's any different from what the rich white person was saying? Like, do rich white people experience depression or communicate it in a different way than a marginalized person might? It seems like if somebody's depressed and they're talking to this AI app about their depression, that the language would more or less be the same for any community. And for leaving them without support, again, this stuff should be collaborative. So the AI should be suggesting possible resources or solutions, and the person using the app should be determining if that works for them, if they want to follow up with that, if they need alternative resources or more resources or different types of support. So if they're not happy with the support the app is giving them, they could communicate that to the app until they get the support that they feel like is going to help them, or that actually does help them, because they can follow up on the different suggestions and see which ones work. So there's agency on the part of the person using the app that can collaborate with the app, to where I don't think the concerns that are brought up in these examples are even anything realistic. An algorithm used to triage patients in mental health crisis. I don't know if you should use an algorithm for that. I think if someone's in a crisis, you should use crisis workers, like humans that have experience with crisis. Might wrongly prioritize individuals based on demographic. This is some woke bullshit that they're worried about that I don't think is a realistic concern. It's a concern. It's a first world concern for people that sit in their mansions or their ivory towers and think of things to worry about. But if you do actual mental health work, this stuff is not a concern, especially if you have a human, or they have access to a human and the bots are just facilitating that access, or if you have actual mental health humans helping to design and program and train these bots and AIs. Balancing accuracy with inclusivity. Hang on, where's my... Ensuring that technology is helpful for everyone, not just certain groups. Who is technology not help? As long as you know how to use. When I was teaching in Vegas, and this was the mid 2000s, and this was mostly like inner city, underprivileged schools. Every kid there knew how to use it. Like the kids there knew how to use technology better than the adults. And I'll tell you why, because they're video games. So if like one of the school computers, something was wrong with it and we needed troubleshoot, the kids could go in the BIOS and the DOS. Like I'm talking like fifth graders, fourth and fifth graders, and junior high kids knew how to go into the BIOS and DOS and get the computers working again so that their game activity could continue. Usually they were like educational games they were playing. They knew how to get those games working again. I'm not, and these were very underprivileged, marginalized kids. So again, this seems out of touch with the situation on the ground. I'm not, if technology is not helpful for someone, that's not a mental health or an ethical dilemma. That's a practical dilemma that's for the technicians to solve, or the educators, whoever is helping people interface with it, with this technology. Transparency and accountability. There's a need for transparency in how data is collected, used, and analyzed to identify and address biases. I don't even know what that means. Like when I'm sure when you're giving your data to an app, there's a notification. There's usually like a privacy policy you have to sign off on, or there's a notification that the data is being collected and how it's going to be used. And nobody reads or pay attention to that anyway. But I don't understand how it's going to impact how it helps to identify and address biases. Let me ask it. Oh, there's Jack.
Hello. Hello.
What's going on today?
Oh, same old, same old. I'm not sure how long I can join for, but I'm gonna join until I gotta charge up my phone basically.
Oh,
But what I just wanted to kind of frame what you're talking. Well, first I want to ask you, where are you getting your questions from other than YouTube? Is it like Twitter or something?
it's Google Bard. It's their AI. Like their version of
Oh, interesting.
ChatGPT.
Also, it gives you topics to talk about while you're streaming.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Does it just know about you, so it brings up topics that it knows you're interested in, or?
No, I told it I do a podcast and I'm looking for topics that would
Oh,
be
that's
good
so
for this.
weird.
So it gives me a list, and then I say, "Well, can you give me some philosophy topics?" And it'll give me more lists,
Oh,
and it'll
that's
say,
so.
"Oh, that's interesting. Can you give me some more related to this category?" And it'll give me more.
No, that's so
And
interesting.
then
And they
today I
call it
asked it for
Bard,
psychology topics and mental health.
and they call it Bard. That's very interesting. But see,
Yeah,
like, I guess so. Here's what I'm saying. It's like, here's the way I wanted to frame what you're talking about here, because the fact that you're even using that to get stuff in is kind of like going to play into how I wanted to frame things anyway. So I guess what I would
it's my
say
new
is,
co-host.
yeah, yeah, it's right. You replaced me or Chris or Machine Lives with Google Bard. So now
Yes,
we all
you've
have
all been replaced with AI.
so quickly. Now just think you could probably just program it to learn about you, and then within a few days it'll probably be able to like just do your show every day for you. You don't even need to show up. It'll just you know.
Yeah, it might even replace me. I actually I've been wanting for a while an AI guest that I can bring on that has a persona, like an avatar that can actually use voice chat and talk back, and that I can interview and have conversations with. And once I figure out how to do that, I could do a whole panel of fake
A whole
people.
panel of all AI, including you. That'd be hilarious.
So that's probably coming, I'm sure.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if it's already happened, but I don't want to go too sci-fi on everybody. But that's a see. That's why I think like not much really bothers me emotionally, because like I'm at the point where like I'm not saying that I believe it. I'm just saying I accept that it is a possibility that we're much further along on that road than we want to admit. Because we wouldn't know the difference anyways, right? I mean, but that. So here's what I wanted to frame. Here's how I wanted to frame what you're saying. You're saying What are the ethical implications of technology? And of course, it says, well, it's talking about a fully automated system discriminating, which has been programmed by people allegedly, which would imply that bias among the people programming or
Or
designing
not
the system.
necessarily even program, but the material that they feed into it to train it on. So
Well,
whatever
when you
it's
talk to
doing its
ChatGPT,
machine learning on.
well, when you talk to ChatGPT, I mean, I don't know if they've changed it since I did it a few months ago, but if you try to Socratically dialogue with that thing, it seems to be walking on eggshells. Do you know what I mean? Like
Because it has a woke filter. There's the machine itself, and then it interfaces through a filter, and it's the filter that they can program to be that. That's why you get the messages like I can't give you that answer. That would be offensive to this group. That's the woke filter. But the machine itself can give you the answer if there's no filter on it.
yeah. Well, here's the thing: is like I would look at it like here's a couple things I would say, and if I were better inclined and not distracted, and had someone like Machine Lives or somebody smarter than me to help me, uh, you know, boil this down a little better, I would probably make a better argument. But first, I would say that when you say filter, I would say that have you ever heard that saying called the median is the medium is the
Yeah,
mean?
Marshall McLuhan.
You're right. What do you think that means? Like
Um,
in a general sense.
Zarathustra Serpent just did a video on it this week, and he touched on that at the end. It's the technology itself has an effect above and beyond whatever content or message is being transmitted by the technology. Like radio, at some point was used for specific purposes, and then once other people started to respond to it as a medium, it started becoming used for all kind of things. And then television did the same thing, and the telephone and internet. And so the medium itself kind of
Has
takes
an
on a
input.
life of its own and opens up possibilities and potentialities above and beyond whatever specific
Right. And I think
AI is going to reach that point too, where there's going to be uses for AI, and it's going to create its own kind of sensibility. Or are you there? Oh,
yeah, I'm here.
my
Well,
speaker went out. Hang on. You know what? I'm just going to switch to my headset. 1 second. All right.
okay, I can hear you now.
Can you hear
Now
me?
yeah, I can. Your voice does sound very different without
Hello.
that microphone though. Can you hear me?
I might have to refresh the page. So hold on
Okay.
1 sec.
Welcome to the NeuroJack show.
Oops, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
So what were you saying?
Well, you were getting into like the median and the mean. The medium is the message or something to
Right.
that. And I think that you covered pretty accurately. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is what you were talking about earlier about the phone. Like you and I both grew up with like a house phone, right?
Yeah.
And then
The
it
landline.
became a cordless phone, and then
Yeah.
it became a cell phone and a pager, of course. And then
Oh
and
yeah.
so I'll never forget my grandfather didn't want to get a cell phone, so he just had a pager. And then every time he'd get a page, he'd have to, pull over on the side of the road and
Yep.
find a phone. And and he hated it, but he just put up with it. And then as he got older, people kept buying him like cell phones, and he would just say, well, I'm not going to use the damn thing, and he would just leave it at home anyways, So, um, and so I guess what I'm saying is, look about the medium and the message, right? Like the way that we communicated determined what we communicated, and I think that we can look at the advantages. Like, okay, well, we had a like I think for people like you and I, the advantage of a telephone was great because the people around us probably weren't the kind of people that we necessarily could explore things that we wanted to explore with, right? So then we had the telephone to compensate for that problem of who's in our proximity, right?
Yeah.
And
And
I
you
think
had
that
to
that's
pay if they were too far away.
Yep, exactly. I got in trouble for long distance phone calling,
Yeah, me too.
and lost my internet access as a punishment for a year. So,
For a
so
year?
yeah, because
Damn, that was harsh.
my grandfather was harsh. But it taught me a lesson, which is that respect other people's. I didn't realize how expensive it was. I was like, oh, it'll cost $20, and anyways, that's a long story. But anyways, you know, I guess the long story, what I'm trying to get at is this, like. I think that when you're looking at ethical things, you have to look at it in terms of not only like purely ethical in the sense of, the four big things, which I'm not going to name, but we all know what it is, killing people, et cetera, right? But it's also kind of like opportunity cost. So what I mean by that is like, um, it may feel good to go and find people that you can have certain conversations with on a large scale like we are with the phone or the internet, right? But the opportunity cost is that our personal relationships that are physical and in person suffer, and um, it's kind of like drug use, right? Like drug use can feel good in the short term, but in the long term, the opportunity cost of that can be very high, right? You see what I'm saying? So it's like it's different ways of kind of fixing a problem. And I think that one thing that me and Machine Lies talk about a lot is that the long term consequences are almost impossible to really uh, what's the word, measure. I'm forgetting the word that I want to use, but let's just say measure. And I think that also like it changes, and it's not necessarily all bad. Like, I mean, I look at my own life, and I'm sure you look at your own life and you say, wow, I can't imagine what my life would have been like. Like, it would have probably been very harsh for people like you and I growing up where we grew up around and not having some sort of way to reach outside of our little
Oh
community.
yeah.
But
It, it
you know what I mean?
probably saved my life.
Yeah, I would even count myself among that way. I mean, if I had to, because I grew up in a very rural place, but I grew up in a few different areas, but all similar in the way where the people around me were not really interested in the things that I was interested in talking about or exploring, and even like a dating pool, right? Like I always had much more success dating and finding women that were interested from a much bigger pool of people, right?
Yeah.
For whatever reason, in person when I was younger, did not really work out for me, even though it was similar kind of people, similar language, similar whatever. For whatever reason, um, it wasn't very conducive for that, right? But this medium opened up so many opportunities and like literally changed the course of my life. Like even just
You
the
talking
fact
about
of
the
right,
internet?
yeah. But even I'll even tell you like this, like um, just the fact that I was able to write letters at 12 years old is the reason why I ended up moving far, far, far away from where my family lived. Right? Had I not been writing letters, you know, at a very young age, the opportunity for me to come out and lived somewhere very far away from my family, never would have opened up to me, right? So just something as simple as writing down on a pen and paper and shipping it across the country completely opened up the doors for me to do something totally different with my life that would not have been available. And that's been around for a long time, but obviously if somebody had to carry that on horse across the country, that would be a very different experience than putting on a truck and shipping across the country, right? And now we have like instant messaging and video calls and all that. So
Well,
and
is it having negative effects on your personal life now?
well, that's a good question. I think that that's the thing is I think that it's both negative and positive. Like my subjective experience is positive and negative. Like is my personal relationship suffering because of this? Yes, but also like is my subjective experience of talking to people all over the country about things I want to talk about good? Yes, but would I be better off like playing sports? Uh, you know, 4 times a week rather than being on live streams? Maybe, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like prioritizing your wants and needs, and if your needs are so easily met by technology, then really what you want becomes a primary focus. See what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
then it's kind of like, okay, well, I don't really need personal relationships with people in my personal life, right? I really don't need it. But should I
Yeah.
have it? But should I have it?
Yes, I'm in the same situation, and I thought the same way, and I don't feel like I need them here either. But then when I went home and I was around all those people, it showed me that there is something that I need in person that I didn't realize until I actually had it. And then I'm like, I do need that balance. And this would be a good topic to talk about. I wish Chris were here because he has a person. See, I don't have a personal life up here at all, so it's easy for me to take this position. But you and Chris have personal lives, and so it would be good to talk one day about finding that balance between your virtual life and your in-person life.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that and it's also kind of like, I mean, I could say some things that you know, not that I would feel bad about, but just it would be hard to contextualize. For example, like around, is it optimal to get married and have children? That's a very huge topic because it forces you into a personal life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and which is not bad, but it's different, right? Like it's a choice that you're, um, essentially stuck with, and it works out differently for many people. And what it is right now might not be the same thing that is in 10 years or 5 years or whatever, right? So that's number one, and you know,
It's a commitment and responsibility that you take on. So why do some people take it on and some people avoid it?
um, well, well, that's the whole thing. Is like, if you look back in the past, people kind of generally did that because, well, functionally there wasn't really much birth control, and so you kind of just did it to hedge your bets that, well, you're gonna end up doing this with someone, and likely someone's gonna get pregnant, so you just kind of make the commitment and hope for the best. But the truth is, you didn't really know if you're gonna have enough crops to feed your family. You don't know if you're gonna have enough community to save you if one of you gets sick. You don't know if you're gonna have a job that's really gonna not destroy your body in the process of you having the job. You see what I mean? Like you really don't know what's going on. But I think now we're at the point where we kind of somewhat assume that um, our basic needs are going to be met relatively easily, and so in that sense, we're safer with technology. In a material sense, people are much safer, at least here in the United States, than they would have been otherwise without so much technology. But at what cost? And so this is why I think a lot of relationships fall apart because you don't really need to hold that commitment to have your material needs cost. And so then if you think, well, if I leave this person, or if we're divorce, if we divorce and we have a kid, or we don't have a kid, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like people are just kind of looking in the moment and the short term costs and benefits. Even if they know that it could potentially damage their kid or something like that, right? Like it's not as real of a problem because you think, well, they're going to be educated more or less for free. I'm going to have food. I'm going to be able to take care of them. I'm going to have something as a safety net, right? So it kind of just what I'm saying is, the you don't really have the same level of risk, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Emotionally, financially, whatever. You see?
Even with the kid, because to me the kid would make a difference.
No, it does. But what I'm saying is, I mean, the divorce rate is still 50%, and people are still having kids, right? But so, but I'm saying in a previous sense, um, that wouldn't happen just merely for the fact that, um, the fear of a woman and a kid not having being provided for. See what I'm saying? Like that alone held marriages together. You know, you
Okay.
see what I'm saying? And versus now, it's like the safety net kind of just changes the parameters where there's no like sense of urgency. See what I'm saying? And also
So
like, you know,
is
and
technology making us more selfish?
I would say selfish has a bad connotation to it, which is probably accurate. But I'll just say it gives us the ability to be more self-centered. You know, and again, like, and also I would say it warps our perception of what our best interest really is at the end of the day. See what I mean? Like, like you when you were talking about love before, you were talking about you know uh, our well-being, right? But I would say like, how do we really know how do we really measure well-being? See what I mean? Like let me
I
put it this
think
way.
it's measured mostly subjectively, but there's objective like markers of it too, like your physical health, your satisfaction with your job, you're having a friend circle, family, people around you that are important, leisure activities that you enjoy, a purpose that you can engage in that gives you fulfillment and meaning.
Right. And I would say this is like, let me ask you this as a not really an aside, but I think you'll kind of get what I'm getting at. How many people in the mental health field would you say, just a loose percentage, realize that they are dealing with a warped perception of reality or themselves? Do you think it's a high percentage or a low percentage?
You talking about the clients or the people
Well,
that
I'm
work
just
in the
I'm
field?
just saying overall in general. Like, do you think that most people are self-aware enough to know that they're not perceiving themselves or their situation accurately?
I think I would say it depends generally on how far advanced on your mental health journey that you are. It's not uncommon for people that have a lot of experience with mental health and have been working on themselves to have that type of awareness you're talking about. But people that are just starting out or maybe haven't done any mental health work but are still in the system may not.
Right.
But
And well,
there's certainly the potential within the mental health field to acquire that awareness, more so than other fields, perhaps.
sure. Well, and I guess what I'm saying is like, okay, like you look at the woke movement as an example, right? Like, obviously, there's a lot of people in that movement who have, some level of, you know,
Delusion.
yes. And my point is, they're even if they're aware of it, they kind of embrace it and look at it as well. Either an I would characterize it as either an excuse or a kind of like they look at it as a virtue or something. You know what I'm saying? Versus the general population, they just say, well, it's something to overcome, right? And I'm using that as an example because I think with technology, it changes the way that we perceive ourselves. It changes the way we perceive the world. But I think this is where machine lies comes from in myself. But most people don't really consider the implications of how technology changes the way you view yourself or the world. See what I mean? So it's kind of like, like with mental health, like you can be aware of it all day, but if it doesn't cause you to change the way you live your life to compensate for it, then um, how can you really say that you're on a journey to correct it? See what I'm saying? And I think that's the way I look at technology is like we can see the benefits of it, but we can't really compare it to without it. You see what I'm saying? Like because and I think that and so then it really comes down to like, well, there's not really a choice to some degree. I mean, we can just say, well, I don't want a cell phone, but then you have a much more difficulty doing things without it, right? So then you're kind of like forced to do things in a way without it. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, is it really you making a choice, or are you just kind of choosing between two things that are kind of forcing you to change your lifestyle into a way where you have to compensate for both sides? Because if 99% of everybody else is going to go along with it, then you choosing not to is not really much of a choice, because you're still subject to whatever everybody else is doing to some degree. You see what I'm saying?
Well, technology is it's our environment. It's a form of the environment, and we adapt to our environments to whatever, or at least we attempt to successfully adapt. Or the ones that do adapt are going to be more successful than the ones that don't. And
No,
so,
I agree, and I think that that's actually a good point. I think that actually I'm impressed by how well humans have and continue to adapt to it. But I think that what I'm saying is that I don't necessarily know that that's a measure of health per se. You see what I'm saying? Or well-being per
ability
se,
to
right?
adapt to a, a new environment, like a strange, like
Well,
I know for a fact there's technology coming up that I'm not going to be able to adapt to or don't want to. Like TikTok, I have no interest in adapting to TikTok at all.
right. But if you wanted to conduct business on a certain scale, you would necessarily have to adapt, right?
No, I just
Sure,
wouldn't.
you
Like if I couldn't conduct business on the scale I wanted to without TikTok, I probably would just choose not to conduct that business.
exactly. No, but that's my point. And I think that, and also like like it's kind of difficult to really put into words what I'm saying, but it's kind of again, it goes back to the whole well-being idea, right? Like compared to what? And my point is, if you don't, if you don't really have a standard to compare it to, and I think this is where a lot of the traditional people get lost too, because they don't really have any way to compare what they want versus what they have. Like we don't really like they glorify what it was like to live in a village and all these things. But the truth is, people are going to get sick and they're going to die. And, you kind of have to accept that as part of the deal that you're asking for, right? But people don't want to look at that either. See what I mean? It's like, you know, and also you might personally have a hard time finding friends. You might have a hard time, you know, expressing yourself because people are not going to really want to do that. And I think that that's, it's kind of like with the woke people too. Like they want, something like a communist commune or something. But the truth is, like, those places do not really tolerate diversity because survival would depend on not having diversity to some degree, right?
No, neither do the libertarians, as much as they pretend. Like they have very strict requirements for who gets to be part of their community. And maybe all of this is just like the woke, the libertarians, you, machine lies, the right, all of it is just with the breakdown of community, this is all attempts to restore some sense of community. And it's just different visions of what that community is. I'm also wondering what some of the dangers of technology are that we might not notice. You mentioned personal life, and I think that's a good one. And what do we need to do to be aware and kind of help to counter or balance some of those dangers?
No point.
Oh, I think you're fading out. Dang it. Lost him. That was a good question. In fact, I want to do a whole show on that. So maybe it's better that he dropped off because that way, when Chris is here, we can make that one of the topics. Because yes, like it's very easy to sit on the internet and stream all day, or chat, or Discord, or whatever, and it feels healthy. It feels like you're connected with all those people. It feels like progress, like social. Instead of isolation, it feels like connection, which feels like progress. So, what are the hidden dangers in that? What impact is it having on your ability to have some kind of real in-person life? What impact is it having on the family around you, the friends around you, or the lack of friends around you? Is it a substitute for in-person community, or some kind of in-person life? I I don't know if you need both, because I spent, like I said, since COVID until now, which is what, over 3 years, I've lived it online just fine. I didn't experience any negative impact of not having a life outside of this. But after going home for those few weeks that I did, it's something that I want, whether it's necessary or I need it or not. It's something that makes me feel more whole and complete as a person. I like having that ability to have an in-person life with family and friends, and the streaming side of me where I can meet and interact with all the people that I may not necessarily be able to in real life. So whether it's good or bad or necessary or not, it's something that I want for myself after having had a taste of having that. So maybe they're not dangers. Maybe that's a dramatic way to phrase it. But what are some limitations of technology, particularly like immersion in virtual worlds? And what are some other options or alternatives that you might want to look at to kind of balance that out or expand your range so that it's not just limited to online or virtual? Because otherwise, like COVID, I remember like growing up, at least maybe as a young adult on when technology started, there was this vision that we would all be living in apartments at some point and interacting through computers. Like you wouldn't necessarily need to go to a local pub or bar anymore, or grocery shop, that everything would be delivered and you would exist in your apartment cubicle and you would interface through computer. There was a reality show a few years ago called The Circle, where they put a bunch of people in this house and they each had a room in the house and they would only interact through video. They didn't actually meet or see each other in person. And they'd play the whole game out from their apartment room through the video screen with the other people in the house. And so kind of like that. And yes, I could probably adapt to that and live that way, but is it something that I want to? Or do I want? One thing I miss is I had a board game group that we would meet in person before COVID and play board games, get together and like have food and interact and sit around a table. And board games, are physical. You move the pieces around. It's very hard to simulate that online, even with things like Tabletop Simulator. It doesn't fully replicate that experience. And oh, okay, you got to okay. Um, I miss that. I would like another in-person board game group of like you can play board games online, and our group tried that for a little while, but it didn't really hold the same interest for us that meeting together in person did. There's sports, there's activities like camping and hiking that you can't do virtually. I don't want to do that virtually. Even if I could, I don't want to. So there are in-person, there are non-digital or non-virtual experiences that I still want to have or find a way to have in my life that all of this streaming stuff may be keeping me from, because I deprioritize that. Just stream. Although I don't feel like I stream terribly. But I don't live on panels like a lot of other people I see. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that if that's what you want to do. And even people like Hank, he has a real job. He works like 50 something hours a week. So even though it looks like he's on panels all day, he actually has more of a life right now outside of that than I do. So some of it could just be appearance too. I want, I need, I thrive in community. And right now, the kind of communities that I need and want and thrive in are happening virtually more than they're happening in person. If for some miraculous reason this wonderful, fantastic, magical in person community were to suddenly appear overnight and I became a part of it, I may not feel the need to stream as much. Who knows? But right now, this is the best avenue or path that I've found to achieve the type of community that I know that I'm looking for. And so that's why I keep doing it. One reason is it expands my reach to the entire globe instead of just my local little city. Um, Plus, right here, I'm a political minority. I'm a cultural minority. So going out and trying to have the in-person community that I can have online is going to be much harder. It's going to be much more of an uphill struggle with different barriers that are not here online. Online, I'm able to find more neurodivergent people, and there's kind of that ease of communication that doesn't always happen with neurotypicals. I'm able to find, I realized the other day that most of the people I interact with on the stream, or a lot of them, grew up in the South. They may not live in the South now, but we all have that kind of Southern background and conversation style that I think allows us to communicate more easily than I would be if I tried to go out and have the same kind of communication with the people here in person. I've been here almost 15 years and I've done it, and it has been an uphill battle every single time because the social norms here are so protocol driven and so like there's a self-consciousness to it. There's not this ease that you could just be yourself and express. There's this, you have to constantly think about what you're saying, and if you say it, things have to be said a certain way. Conversation is micromanaged and controlled and directed. It doesn't have this organic form that it kind of just takes on naturally because people are always jumping in to direct it. Um, like conversation traffic cops. Oh, and that is unheard of in the South. If anybody tried to do that in Louisiana, they would be shunned from the group permanently. Nobody likes that shit. We like to just be able to talk, the conversation to just flow. And that's the kind of social norms that I need. And up here, it's also very collectivist. There's this pressure to align your goals or your communication needs with the impact it's going to have on the larger group. So you have to like kind of think how what you're going to say, what effect might it have on this person, this person, this person if I say it, instead of just saying, and then the person can react however they want to react. There's kind of this tendency to take the collective into like this abstract collective into account in your communication. It's like I said, it's a very self-conscious way of communicating that I don't have the skill set, the training, the innate aptitude, the capacity for. And so it's easier for me to be in environments like this where the conversation can just happen naturally. Like even there are some streams that do micromanage and try to structure and direct the conversation more, and I stay away from those. I go on the ones where I can just talk and be myself, and I try to create the space here for people to come on and talk and be their self. As long as you're not infringing on other people's ability to also do that, like some of the trolls that go on these streams, and then nobody else can have their expression. I don't know where I was going with that, but I don't know if let's see, convert on. Yes, absolutely. Okay, my vision for a while, for years now, I've even written it into some of my rough plans that I sketched up, is to have a hybrid community. I want to grow the virtual community large enough to where we can start having local, regional, in-person chapters and have it be a hybrid between online and in person. That's how the gay community in Vegas was, because there's no like centralized gay district there like they have in other cities. So we all interacted online during the day, and then we met at the bars at night, and we interacted in person. And people would have house parties and events. I created this little um, social organization at one point called Beyond the Bars, and it was specifically to have activities and events to do outside of the bars, but also outside of just hanging out in the chat rooms all day. And so it became this combination of virtual access and interaction, and then having real person events and activities and opportunities to take what happens virtually into the in-person realm. And you got that balance of both, but it was from the same community. It didn't have to be two separate communities. That is absolutely one of my goals. And I've been trying to do that for a while. Like I said, it's really hard. I think if I go back to the South, it would be a lot easier. People are more extroverted and social, and they're looking for that kind of stuff. Here, you really have to pull teeth to get somebody to do something in person, and then they have to feel a certain. They have to feel comfortable and feel safe, and they're constantly on guard against anything you say or do that might suddenly impact or affect this imaginary marginalized majority that's not even around. Again, it's that self-consciousness. It's just layers and layers of self-conscious that for me are barriers and get in the way of the type of community I'm trying to achieve, which is where people can just be their natural, organic, authentic self without a lot of artifice and like control. But yes, it is possible. I've done it before. It's absolutely possible. It just we need the critical mass of people first. We need enough people consistently engaging online to kind of stabilize the virtual component to it. And then we need to start identifying the different regions that are most active and start getting some local chapters going in those regions, like local organizers that can help facilitate activities and events at a local level that people can show up for. It's absolutely possible, though. And there's been several organizations that have tried to pull something like that off that I've tried to collaborate with, but they were not very functional or effective at doing it. If somebody like, I think I'm going to write this into my business plan, because if I had the funding, and it really doesn't take much, but if the money that people are putting into these other organizations, they would give me just a fraction of, I could pull off that mission way better than I'm seeing these other groups try to do it. But I couldn't do any of it until we have the numbers. And right now it's just trying to get the numbers. We're still trying to get the channel up to 1,000. We're trying to get more guests, more viewers, a more active and robust comment section. Although I absolutely love what's been happening in the comments so far over the past weeks, months. So once that keeps growing, oh, hey, machine, what's up? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, there you are.
Yeah, how's it going? Greetings, friend.
Greetings. Happy upcoming New Year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be a rough one, I can tell, for sure. But
For
but I'm
you.
prepared. Yeah, I'm prepared for anything. Yeah.
What's happened? What's going on? You talking about with your situation?
Yeah, just situation, just life in general. Seems like I'm coming up on a lot of things, it just seems like there's a lot of tumultuous energy around, like definitely an uphill battle, good versus evil, spiritual war, like the greater jihad, like that kind of thing. Like,
Whoa.
it's like some angels, demons, warlocks,
That sounds fun. That does sound intense. It sounds fun though. How can I get in on this spiritual war?
Yeah, fairies, warlocks, demons. Yeah, the
Oh,
whole family's in. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
it
You
sounds like
got
a role-playing game.
oh man, you got zombies, you got trolls.
Oh, yeah, I've met the trolls.
I met the zombies and the trolls.
Are you encouraged for this new year, or like, is it going to bring new potential for you? Are you
I am.
apprehensive about it?
I mean, I've never been more motivated, more ready, and more afraid. It just is what it is, But
That's
let
a
the battles
complex set of emotions.
yeah, but that's how it's got to be. I mean, there's got to be high stakes, for me to actually get in. And actually, I actually perform really well under stress. So
Hmm.
so I think
Yeah, me too. I have to have that level of challenge.
yeah.
What do you have planned for the new year? Anything new?
Well, no, I'm just trying to it's really just trying to get away doing more of what I'm already doing, which is I don't really have a New Year's resolution. I just have things I need to do and haven't yet done.
I notice you're getting into the philosophy more. You're able to get more of the education that you wanted on your channel.
Yeah. Yeah, I went more into that stuff. The numbers took a hit.
Oh, really? Because they
Oh,
want the
yeah, the
drama.
numbers yeah,
They
they
don't
want
want
the
all the
drama,
dirty
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, the numbers took a hit,
Damn it.
and also the attacks, increased. So it was a double damage. It was like, "Oh god." It was like, so not only are people now, not watching, but I'm actually getting attacked worse than before. So really I think it's the content. But really what had happened is, I mean, what had happened was is that I kind of figured out that it was the content on the channel that I was covering that was getting me all of the troll attacks, but the troll attacks were personal, and then me responding to those personal attacks created um a lot of like whipped up a lot of furious energy around my show, which brought a lot of people in because people liked the drama and how I was able to stand up to whatever was going on, and just and actually I gained a reputation as a shit talker myself, so the thing is that I get a little shit talky at times. Today I unloaded on this Snafu Snaps individual, on my show. He came in to troll on my show.
He was on Jack's yesterday, threatening to get his stream shut down.
Yeah, and I can't. I took it to the end of the line with the troll guy, and I said, state your purpose and end, and because A, you're not a Christian, B, you're talking about all this satanic stuff. It's just pulling out of your ass because you're not a Christian, you know? And then C, you're colluding with all of these people who are clearly under, the type of influence that you try to dispromote, because they're promoting, you know, you know, all sorts of non-biblical themes and items. Let's just put it that way. You know what I mean? So he came to attack Hank there, and I showed that the basis that they're using to attack people. See, that's what happens is that when I showed that to Tommy didn't just stop trolling and stop talking about that stuff. He just went away.
Yeah, because
So,
do you think their purpose is anything more than attention? And when they
well,
stop
well,
getting it, they leave.
well, I think it's just that they have an ulterior motive, and once you explore and explain that ulterior motive, because you'll see like Snafu will come at everybody with the same thing, and so will Tommy. So then when I underwrite the program, I say, well, this thing that you're using against everybody, that's you, that you're the one who does that. You're that guy. Then they just go away because it's just going to be again and again and again me circling around and saying, but what point do you how do you have the position to make that point? What standard are you using to criticize the guy when you're not a Christian? Blah blah blah. It's just going to come back to that. And why are you supporting, for example, Paul Unslaved, who wants to start a sex cult where people share their wives?
Oh, I did.
You know,
I don't know much about him, but I didn't know that.
he stated it publicly on his show. He stated it on his show multiple times. So and this he calls pimping. And he says that it's a bit non-bit because it's also considered cuckoldry.
Like the fetish, the kink fetish.
Yeah. So it's like he's presenting himself as a cuckold in lieu of pimping. It's all very like crazy behavior. You know what I mean? So it's like you're gonna sit there and tolerate that, and then he's gonna sit there and tell me, oh no, well, I'm gonna call these people out for what they do too. And then he's gonna go on the OTW news, and OTW and me got into a whole discussion where this guy flashed up a picture of a Yakub alien and showed us the penis of the alien. I'm not kidding. The penis of the alien. I'm not even kidding. And said that the penis of the alien represents testa and menti. Testes and menti. So what it means is that you get your Christ oil by sucking up your jizz through the Kundalini serpent. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
This is Ian was saying this.
No, this is OTW News.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's Ian. Wow.
Okay, I didn't
It just
know
gets
that his
it
name
gets
was Ian.
weirder and weirder.
So I'm like, so wait, so you're gonna sit there on the panel with that guy, and not even address the fact of his satanic meme, which he believes in, and I'm not saying that he doesn't have a right to believe in this satanic meme, but you are clearly going panel to panel alleging somebody shouldn't have the right to believe in this satanic meme. It's the same thing with Tommy. Tommy comes from this troll like community or whatever. So once I asked him, who's that guy, that comes and exposes people that you're over there on his stream all the time. And then this guy comes and porn bombs my stream.
OTW did?
No, this guy that Tommy goes and works for.
Who's that guy?
Like on some other channel, but I heard his voice because he comes out on his voice. I don't even want to say his name here because I don't want your channel to get in trouble. You know what I mean? Right? Because I don't want them to like start porn bombing your channel. But
they not, because they're not even coming on. You can
Right,
type in the private chat if you want. But what is Snafu part of that ortho cult, or is he Christian?
Who?
Snafu?
He's not part of any ortho thing. He's not even a Christian.
So he's just a straight up troll.
Yeah, he said on my show, I'm not a Christian. And I said, what are you doing? That was my first.
They're looking for attention. I don't know what kind of personal life they have, but they're obviously not getting some kind of need met. And this is Jack's point about like terminally online and the dangers and needing some kind of in-person balance to that. And I don't think they have it.
Yeah, but this guy in the private chat, the channel I sent, this guy P-bombed my channel. I know because when I went to his channel and listened to his voice, it was the same voice as the guy that I was hearing that was P-bombing my channel.
I've never heard of him. Let me look him up.
Well, one thing you'll notice when you go on his show is that Tommy's featured on his show many times. He's like on every episode. Like Tommy's on like every panel. So I'm like, okay, so like these people are part of some team of people that are going after some guy named Thomas Schoenberger, who's like related to some Hollywood guy's death, Isaac Cappy or something like that. But these people are roped into some weird dynamics,
Do you think
where I
they
was like,
coordinate, or like there's a Discord that they're all on, or are they just
because they
independent
seem to
trolls?
they seem to talk about the same issues. Like Snafu's talking about all the same types of tie-in issues too. That all of these people, Tommy and Denise and Montegraph and Snafu Snap seem to be concentrating on all of these issues with all of these groups. That's linked into all of these it's linked into all these groups who make all of these pedo accusations on people.
Oh
You know,
yes, Snafu's big on that.
and I think
And
the
they
reason
all
they
they
do
all
that,
show up on the same. Yeah, you're right, because I've seen all of those people on the same streams, and that's where the drama starts every time they come on.
yep,
That
yep,
same crowd.
yeah. So they get some wild hair up their ass. They start trolling and getting onto the thing, and it's like this flying monkey circus
Yeah.
that they unleash. So they have this whole thing, but yeah, it goes back to that question about the online communities and about materializing in the real world. And the real thing is that you know these people do have real lives and they have reputations in
Oh,
the
they
real
do.
world.
Does Tommy work or do anything?
I don't know about Tommy
He
himself,
seems like he lives out of his apartment. Like he's kind
but
of a shut-in.
somebody like any of these people who, I just don't know what the motive would be behind any of this, unless there are blackmailing somebody, you know what I mean, for something, or they are part of some sort of, you know, because that's the allegation, is that it's a blackmail ring, that they find information on people, they troll them online, they get them into situations to try to blackmail them, to get money from people, extort people into using them for fake court cases and shit or something like that. It's like a crazy mail scam.
I mean, that that does sound crazy, but it sounds believable too, because I know there's people in real life that would do stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
So I
that's
guess
what
the answer
yeah.
is to keep them off your panels.
well, the thing is that I've have so many people on my panel. See the one time I had the woman up on my panel, you know,
Denise
um
Meto.
yeah, yes, people had
I
sent me
remember her.
emails saying I was promoting somebody who had accused them of murder. So people had sent me messages saying I am personally responsible for promoting people that have accused them of murder. So what I said was, well, I've had so many different people on my panel. I mean, you just wouldn't believe how many different types of people I've had on my panel that I'm just not aware of where they came from or what fucking portal they just fucking stepped out of, minutes ago, until they called into my show. You know what I mean? So, you know, so I just told them, I'm not responsible for promoting anyone. You know, the only thing I'm responsible for promoting is those ideas on my show, that come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And especially in my solo presentations, and I engage people in conversations, and most of it goes nowhere. You know,
I mean,
but
murder's for the courts to decide anyway. That's nothing to do with your individual stream.
well, that's exactly what it is. Then why would these people not go through the appropriate channels and instead spread this information online? Well, they're engaged in either some kind of a slander or blackmail operation or something like that. It's like I don't want to talk to anybody who's involved with that.
Yeah, I don't know if it was your show or Jack. It was Jack Talcott's. Denise was on it, and Jack Talcott called her on something where she left the show and started her own stream and started trashing Jack Talcott the whole time he was streaming. She had a side stream going, trashing him about what had just happened. Here's Jack.
Yeah, I just heard like 30 seconds of the show before I jumped on, so please continue what you're saying because
We're catching up on all the drama, the stream drama.
yeah, I saw some of
It's wild. Oh my god, it sounds crazy.
yeah, I just saw like a little bit of Machine Live show this morning. I missed the whole thing, and so I started watching after he already ended it, and I saw I left off on where Snaps was coming in and like trying to be half friendly, and then he just turned on everybody, and then he got caught out by
When does he
Machine.
not do that? That's like was it Captain Kangaroo and Mr.
It's
Moose?
he
And
did the
every
same.
episode he would like convince the captain that the balls were not going to drop on his head. And every episode the balls dropped on his head and the captain fell for it every time. Like why would people expect Snafu to not do anything but that?
Well, the thing is that I like my whole thing is I'll take it to the end level, and then if you start making it personal with me, then I know it's over. I know like I've exposed you. So the thing is that I did the same thing with EBT and TBE. I just took them to that very personal level, and then they couldn't really hang there. So then I said, okay, well, since you guys like to take it to that level and you guys don't really want to have a conversation, I guess I could say that, you're just that they're disingenuous. But if people want to have fun and just shit talk and just bust each other's balls and stuff like that, it's really not that kind of show. You could do that when you're playing fucking online video games with your buddies or whatever. Like we're gonna sit here and talk about, you know, um, certain subjects. You know, s- like I honestly don't think there's been as many sources, read out in terms of intellectual like discussions and shit. Like people don't really cite like books, articles, like fucking Bible verses, like text and shit. Like I've done all of that on my show, so I mean I haven't
Flo,
seen any, like for example, like I haven't seen any of the shows in our like vicinity or any of these other shows do that. There's like professional shows online
well, I
that
mean,
talk about like
look at the look at who's on the show. You think they're going to do that? So Flo,
well
Flo
you've
obviously
done
leaves
it.
his house because he's in his car right now. So here's somebody that has a life.
What's up? Yeah.
And a burrito, bitches.
That's what's
Is
up.
it Taco Bell? If you eat at Taco Bell, don't admit it on camera. I
It's
don't know what
definitely
else they
Taco
have.
Bell.
Oh, gross. It is, well, that might be all they have down
No,
there.
sir.
He'll be admitting
Middle
it to the
America,
toilet later on.
the state will
No,
be
sir. My
flowing.
stomach is like a rock. My stomach is like a rock. Taco Bell is nothing. Piece of cake.
Oh, it's like horse meat. Ugh. Greasy horse meat.
Actually, I forgot. I got to make a phone call. I'll jump back in a second. Keep doing your thing.
Okay, because we're talking about the drama, so I want to get your take. Yeah, but they all do it. Flo does it. Talcott, you, everybody. They let this trolls on over and over and over. It's the same game every time. It's like a shtick at this point.
Yeah, but the thing is that in terms of um how quickly it gets personal, because see the thing with Talcott and Flo is that they're extremely calm individuals. You know what I mean, right? But
I don't.
I'm not.
If unless you bring up money, if you bring up money to Jack, that's
Yeah,
when angry cock comes out.
yeah, but if you start flipping on my show, like if you get a tad bit nervous on my show, I think somebody will sniff you out. I think I think like there's a weird kind of chemistry on my show where even if there's a little bit of like side like weird energy, like it'll just bubble into something like not controllable. So like even inside of me. So like I like me like my like response within 30 seconds was just yelling at the top of my lungs at Snafu. because I was just like, because I said, because he came out and said, Hank, you do all this, and then he said, I'm not a Christian. And I said, no, stop right there. You're not a fucking Christian. You're not a Christian. You're not a fucking Christian. Stop right there. You're done. You're fucking done. It's over. Game over. It's over. You've been exposed. You exposed yourself. It's done. You have nothing to say to this man. You know, so I like, you know, there is a certain ability where, you know, I cannot, you know, I will not, you know, actually tolerate bullshit, you know. So, you know, that's the thing is like, you know, you know, like I get like the calm energy and stuff like that, but there's been like only maybe 2.5 times where Snafu's actually been on my show. You know, and the couple of times where Tommy like you know, really like went off when there was like nobody else involved with it and it was just Tommy on his own just going off, I actually just got rid of him. You know, because I'm like, it's not your show. You know, so can't just.
That's every stream I've ever seen Tommy on.
Yeah, but I don't think so. I think a lot of times, see, watch that other show. You know, he's very calm on that show. Yeah, he's very calm on that show. You know, so
no, that's exactly right. People are picking and choosing where they want to freak out and where they don't, and that's what's noticing. That's what I'm noticing too. It's like people are like very carefully picking and choosing their battles, and like you should. But my point is like they obviously are like doing something that's disingenuous at some point. Like you have to notice, you know.
Yeah, and that's what I said to Tommy. I said, Tommy, why don't you go and do that on that other show? You know, why don't you go and do that on you know, on Sewer Town or that other show? You know,
well, and these other people came out.
Or I said, yeah, or I said to Snafu, why don't you go and do that on OTW? And I said to EBT, why don't you go and do that on the Crucible?
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah, exactly.
They
like
do it
what I
on
mean.
viewers because they can.
Yeah, exactly. And the minute I exposed that, I never saw them on my panel again. So it's just like, it's like, you know, they'll go away if you expose where they came from to troll you, you know, because then essentially, you know, whoever these channels are or whatever, like they're like sent to troll you from these channels or whatever.
Well, and that's what I noticed. Like, sorry to interrupt you. There's a little bit of delay on my side, but I just want to say, well, that's what I was kind of noticing is like some of these people who come and like do this stuff to you, or they even did it on my show when I had like 5 viewers a few months ago. Now they're going on Flows and like just sitting there being all nice and calm and polite, and I'm like, it's like multiple personality disorder or something else. I don't know.
Or they know what they're doing.
No, that's what happened to me too. You know, I had good relations with these people for months. You know, that's what it is. You know, they come in. It's like, you know, the vampire shit. Like you got to let them in first. You know, and then once they're in, you know what I mean. And then
just like, don't let them in. That's what I keep saying. I don't let the vampires cross my threshold.
Yeah, but the thing is that it's hard to decide in the beginning who's a troll and who has value and who can be reformed. You know, because
none of them can be reformed.
Oh no, there are definitely
you don't have that power.
No, there are definitely reformed trolls amongst my ranks. You know, I've had reformed trolls amongst my ranks.
Is that your goal, to reform people like Tommy? No,
my goal is not to reform anyone, but to inform everyone. You know, so that is part and parcel of what I'm there for, is that it's just free information to whoever wants it, you know, and whoever tries to get in the way of the information being put out, sorry, you know, I'm going to talk over you. It's going to be another show. It's going to be on again. I'm going to say it twice, or it's going to be, you know, said when you're not around, you know.
Well, and I noticed even about myself, like when I first started doing this, like I was going to start pulling up, like I don't know if you remember, you probably do, but I sent so much stuff to so many people that I'm not going to name right now, but like so much show material that I was just like, hey, here's free material of like real substantive stuff, like I would love for you to cover, and I'll even come on to help if you want, but I don't want any credit. I don't need any credit. You take full credit. I just want to see the stuff covered. And then I was like, okay, I'll just do my own show. But then I noticed it's like I was going to go and start covering like major technology companies that are developing Terminator style computer chips, for example, right? And then now it's been 6 months, and I've been so distracted by all this other shit that I haven't even done that, right? And I think that's also kind of like what I'm noticing is like, as soon as you start talking about real shit, that's when people start getting like whatever. And like, it would be good if people were staying and listening for the information as well. But it's like, then your whole show just becomes about the drama. And then when you do talk about something real, the audience that is there is not interested in those topics anymore. So you see what I mean? It's like,
So
and
the drama
so,
gets split. That's where the
well, the drama drives away anybody who would actually be interested in actually
it
doing
drives
something
me
about the
away.
problems that you're talking about. And I think that that's what I was talking about. That's why I came at Mr. Bunny Rabbit, because like Mr. Bunny Rabbit, I actually agree with him on 90% of everything he said. But my concern is always that
Yeah,
a
me
lot of
too.
time, yeah, no, like I think that most of what he said I agree with. And everybody thought that I was being a troll because I was like giving him shit. But I was like, hey, um, it wasn't really about him. It was about the fact that I could tell that some of these talking points are taken advantage of and are used to drive people away from larger overarching points. For example, the Mandela effect and the flat Earth stuff. Like, if I just lead off and say, let's start talking about this, anybody who has a PhD or works at a tech company is just going to automatically dismiss that everything else I say after that is full of shit. You see what I'm saying? Like, and I know that that's not the way these people see it. But my point is like, um, that's not a hill that we should die on if we're actually trying to affect any kind of change. Now, I don't think that Mr. Bunny Rabbit sees that as his mission, but I'm pretty sure that I do, and I think that Machine Lies does as well, right? So it wasn't to come at him as a person. It's just to kind of come at like how we approach the topics does matter, and I think that that's kind of why these trolls are so effective, because like I don't really have a problem with trolling or trolls. It's kind of like how and why you're doing it, and what is your goal, right? And if your goals aren't clear, like my goals are pretty clear. I think I've stated it as many times as I've been asked. But if your goals aren't clear and what you're saying is detracting from the goals of everyone else who agrees with you, and that's why I brought up on one of the shows recently with you, Machine, is like all the people attacking me are supposedly on my team. So I just find it.
That's why you have to take a counterintuitive approach. When the trolling increases, you have to increase the information, and when the trolling ceases, you have to increase the counter trolling. So it's just like, all
Or
you
you
do
could
is
just avoid the troll. Is the only reason that
no, there's no
their
way. There's no way
numbers.
to avoid. There's no way to.
Yeah, I manage it. You just don't let them on.
Well, yeah, but also it's low engagement. So
Right.
so
That's
so
so there's a payoff to
yeah, there's a
get
payoff
the.
exactly. So like
Or
that's
you can do like Flo, who's a capitalist, and I'm trying to learn from him. He charges
Well,
people money to kick people off the panel or to have them
and
on.
even that's I'm still finding my own balance, and I actually think I'm about to tighten up sort of standards for what sort of insanity people bring on, unless I'm trying to go into Fight Club round, and then what I need to do is figure out how to control myself, because I'll get tired of these motherfuckers before somebody will buy them off. Like,
Yeah, that's my challenge. I get tired of them before they even come on.
yeah. But I think that you find that when you enforce tighter troll standards, you get lower engagement initially, but then other people who would not have joined with the trolls start to join without the trolls.
Yeah, it's kind of like having to regrow your channel in a different direction all over again.
Yeah, and Flo, if
In
you
the
don't mind
long
me
run,
saying,
it
like,
sounds worth it.
no, I agree, and I think that that's why, like, I haven't really even tried to start my own show again, because there's so much stuff to navigate, and like I'm so new to this whole idea that I don't even know where to begin. But I do know this. Like, I think that, like, I looked at some of your old material, Flow. Like, you're very knowledgeable on a lot of political stuff, right? But you hardly ever talk politics, and like I'm the same way. Like my main stuff that I know is like history and politics, and I never really get a chance to cover it. And I think that's because so much of the drama. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the trolls set the level of discourse, and if you want a higher level of discourse, you need to reorient your stream to.
Well, and actually, some of me stepping off of political topics is intentional to find a higher level of discourse, because really that's just the same. That's just exactly the same sort of drama, but on a national stage. I mean, I don't even believe most of it's real.
Maybe so, but at least politics has the potential to bring out philosophical and like meta-ethical type discussions.
Right? Yeah, those I can get on board with. But is Trump going to throw Hillary in prison? That sort of level politics is just
no, and I totally agree. But what I'm saying is, I think that, and I've talked about this with Machine and other people as well. Like, I'm going to jump off just because I want to hear you guys talk. But I just want to say this. Like, I think my big thing is like a lot of us, like us four here, and some others like us. I think that we're decent at contextualizing things with the right people around, and with the wrong people around, they're totally miscontextualizing the stuff. Like you said, like I think a lot of that politics and stuff is kind of stupid, but it's a good way to get people thinking in a meta-ethical way, for example, or you know what I mean? It's a good way to like 100%. Illustrate the larger points that you're making. You see what I mean?
100% agree.
But yeah, I think you guys are. I'm gonna jump off now.
Okay, I mean you could listen and mute, but I'm looking for bigger name guests eventually. Like I want my channel to grow in a direction where I can have the bigger names on, and they're not going to come on channels with Illumitami and Snafu and those type of people on it. So I don't
need to go on other panels more.
I need to go on other panels.
Yeah, you need to participate in other panels more than you do.
I do, and I try to, but here's my problem. Every time I show up on a panel, Tommy's on it, or Smith, or Snafu, or whatever. I'm not going to sit on a panel with those people and try to compete with that. So it's finding the panels that don't have the trolls on it that I can participate in the first place.
You'll get so many subscribers just for sitting there and silently reacting to what they say. Even if you're just like, nope.
So y'all
like,
are
everything they
tempting
say,
me
you're just
now.
there and go,
Y'all
nope.
are,
like people will go like, hey, that Gen X Jeff, he's a calm guy.
I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to silently sit there and like not react to them
and go at him. I mean,
you saw me. The whole drama with Toilet Bowl started when I went on your show, and I don't know what his deal was, but he just started attacking you for having me on your panel in the first place.
They have a weird preconceived notion about what Satanism is. That it's the same thing as Gnosticism and but like people who practice black magic and all this other shit. So they're like obsessed with all this nonsense that they made up in their mind about what the fuck it is. So yeah.
Well, they're just ignorant. That's just ignorant. Energy vampires. Yes, exactly. Energy. There's this weird codependent relationship between a lot of the hosts and the trolls.
Yeah, they had a literal fucking Chucky the Doll version understanding of what Satanism is. It's like, okay.
That's exactly the sort of shit I'm talking about, though. Like, for my own channel, I want them to feel free to come and participate. That said, they know they're being retarded and douchey and self-indulgent. Smith knows. Tommy knows. Snaps knows. I just don't feel like they need to be handled by me. For my show, they can go fuck off. Smith, you want to come up here? Come on up. You want to tell everybody about how Michael Jordan's dick is 12 inches long and 12 is the number of months? I don't give a fuck. You're out. Like,
but how does anybody else get to contribute when they're on? That's my issue. When Tommy's on, when you have even Tommy alone, but if you have two of them at the same time, how does anybody else get to participate in the panel?
Well, and I don't know. I guess on my channel, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to force them to participate like adults or bounce them. I think that what Machine Live says is absolutely true. I've seen him sit there for a long ass time just sort of on camera smiling or laughing or whatever, just reacting facially, not even verbally. And at the end of the show, even if he said nothing, you walk away with the impression like that was a pretty chill dude there. It's like, all right, fair enough, he's got a point. You can get attention just by being present. You don't have to participate.
Well, I don't know if I could pull off chill, but I'm willing to experiment with it and try some of these panels and see what happens.
Silence is,
Yeah,
I mean, silence is a legit response. I mean,
it is a legit response.
Certain things, it's just like, okay, well, like if you heard somebody outside say that, you just be like, oh, okay,
right,
and that'd be it.
Especially cammed on. I think if you're on a panel and you're silent and you're cammed off, you won't register with people. But if your face is there, then you will be, building whatever
When's the
equity in
next
their
time
brain.
you're streaming? Are you streaming today?
It's very likely that I will tonight. Yeah.
Okay, I'll see who's on, and I might hop on. And Machine, your next one is Saturday.
I accidentally streamed this morning because I thought it was Friday.
Did anybody see you masturbate?
What was that?
Oh, you got your days mixed up. I thought you went live on
I did
accident.
too. I thought today was Friday too. Like this whole holiday thing threw me off.
What fucking day is it?
It's Thursday.
What?
Yeah.
I thought it was Friday today. Did you?
I thought it was Friday too.
Dude, we just got Mandela affected.
I don't know.
Because Christmas is on a Monday and it threw the whole rest of the week off.
Yo,
it felt
I
like
thought
a
it
Sunday.
was Friday all day today. I thought it was Friday. I was fucked up in the head. And I did my last stream on Tuesday thinking it was Wednesday. I think so. So I've been fucked up for a while. Like it's not just today. Yeah.
I mean, you guys just informed me it's not Friday.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Well, I just learned that myself.
I know it came as a shock to me when I was ending my stream this morning, and I was like, "It's time to go to Friday prayer," and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's Thursday," and so I'll have to do another stream tomorrow morning just because. So today's morning stream was just a bonus stream, So I just did a bonus stream for everybody.
Well, I like yours when Tommy's not a part of it. He's not a mod anymore, right?
He's not on the channel anymore.
On mine?
No,
he unsubscribed to my
Machine
channel.
made him a mod.
Yeah,
why the fuck would you do that?
But I like yours. I like Flo's. I like Talcott's. That's probably the only 3 that I would consider even going on.
But my recommendation was just about drumming up viewers. Like that's how I got a fuckload of viewers. Probably the majority is because I look for panels and then I join them. It doesn't fucking matter if I like the panel or even know what it's about. The biggest the biggest new sub count I ever got from joining a panel. I'd never heard of them. I didn't know the topic. Yeah. Ziggy, it's in the true crime thing. I just saw an open panel. I saw that there's nobody. Oh, there's like one other person up with her. They had like 600 viewers. Like, what the fuck is going on here? I don't know, but I'm carpeting that DM.
Which panel was it?
The channel is called Ziggy.
Ziggy.
Yeah, Zigggy, and she does true crime stuff.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I feel like you're being too selective and elitist for your own channel growth benefit.
But do I want my channel to grow with that audience? Like, do I want a bunch of people?
I don't think that you don't get much of a choice. It's a public. I mean, yeah. This is your subscribers. This isn't like the people that are coming to dinner tonight.
Right.
I'm willing to give it a try. The other thing I find that helps a lot is when people double stream and we share audiences. I've gotten some growth from that before.
I would say though, I think that the Machine Lies and Jack Talcott are particularly negatively impacting themselves by allowing as much bullshit as they do on their channels.
I know. I've told Machine that many times, but you kind of do the same thing. I think you have better control over it, and you have ways to monetize it and make it work to your advantage.
I think for Talcott and for like FlowState and people like that, I think it's fine that you know, that they don't have like characters on their show that are going to cause a disturbance, especially on Talcott show, because he's trying to make this peaceful vibe. But for me, like I'm literally want like people like, you know, vomiting, bleeding, like maybe like, you know, picking their scabs out, like maybe like you know, punching each other, some guy walking up to some guy on the street and just punching him, you know, like I actually want like weird, like chaotic energy.
You understand
Oh,
how much
okay. Well, I didn't know that.
how of
I'm gonna try to
conflicting
help
that is
out.
with the intellectual portion of you and your channel. Like
Yeah,
those two audiences are different, except
that's
for
what
me.
I want.
The
Yeah, that's what I
Dionysian
want.
and
I want the
Apollonian.
dynamism. I want the dynamism of it being a intellectual show, but like nobody takes the intellectual portion of it
Because you
seriously.
can either be Phil Donahue or Jerry Springer, but I don't know if you can be both in one
Yeah,
show.
the lowest common denominator is called that for a reason. You can't bring one side up; you'll just chase the other side off.
But
I would
that's what I
think.
want. I kind of want to be like a diamond in the rough type of a situation. Like I kind of like that type of role. The reason is because most of the intellectual content on the channel, it only comes from me. You know, if I can open up any type of panel I want, and nobody's gonna engage with the topics that I have because
Yeah,
nobody's like
that's
like
true.
like who's actually gonna talk about like philosophy of technology? There's literally like 10 other guys in the world that are even talking about the topic. You know, so you know, I mean, it's not like people are gonna engage with me on the topics I represent. So it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, when I open up the panel, I'm just ready to have just conversations with people. And the stupider it gets, I mean, it's funny.
Well, I can't do much about the stupid, but I can try to help with the chaos part. I just feel like
I just don't like.
it's
I just
such a
don't like.
lower part of myself. Like that's so easy, and it comes from such a
I'm just not taking the
base
strikeable
part of
stuff
myself.
because Tommy and the Snafu guy, they'll do strikeable things. You know, they'll do things like, you know, where like, you know, they'll drop the F slur or they'll talk about,
You
you
talking about
know,
faggot?
yeah, or any of those types of things. You know, they'll drop faggot, they'll drop you know, they'll say you know, stuff about the jabbies or whatever. They'll say stuff about any fucking thing they want to. And then
They'll leave that marginal shit, and then if they decide to go back and strike it,
exactly.
it's something that you're not going to have an issue with unless somebody makes an issue with it. Exactly like the F word, like
Well,
the N
apparently
word.
Snafu is reporting channels now. He's trying to get Jack shut
Oh
down.
yeah, no, he's a complete piece of shit. He's a complete piece of shit. Like I like Snafu, no respect for him at all. I still do like him, even though he's a dickhead. Like I kind of like the guy.
You
That
like
said,
Tommy too, though. I saw your what you and Tommy got into it.
yeah, but I like Tommy too. But I still have some respect for Tommy, right? Like
What's the
Snafu with
appeal?
his little snitching campaign, and he's not even ashamed of it.
Snafu just seems like a child. Like he talks like a child.
Yeah.
Where are you going? He just has a child mindset at expression level.
Yeah, I agree. But he can be kind of charismatic when he's not doing his bullshit.
Oh, I guess I've never seen him.
Yeah,
not
it's
do
rare.
It. And then what's the appeal with Tommy? He just seems like a meth head.
It depends on the day and stream. Sometimes there has been streams where I appreciate Tommy bringing some juice into what was otherwise kind of like a flat interaction.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. Tommy's a harder one for me to balance because he's smarter. He's smarter and more dynamic, but he's it's just unmanageable. He's entirely
it's the
unmanageable.
Tommy show, and he's not.
Yeah.
He's not materia poetica enough for me.
You might be right. I don't know. Like I said, I'm still working on the balance. God fucking damn it, get out of my way, you nigga. Sorry, I
I'm
didn't mean
starting
to
to come
say
around to your way of seeing it too. Like I need to make my peace with some of this drama and not try to stay on the walls of the city.
But I say that if I have a guest who's willing to engage with the topics on the intellectual level that I'm accustomed to, you know, then I'll just have them on alone without a panel, But then if I open up my panel, it makes no sense to say somebody's not intellectual enough to join my panel, because then I'm
But it does
grading.
make, but
Yeah,
it does
no,
make
no,
sense to
it's,
say that somebody is not. This is also media. You're also creating media all the time. And if you've got Cecil sleeping, like that is the first person I'd be go get the fuck out of here. You're not. You know that you're not even trying
and
to
he's
add
taking
anything.
up a slot.
You're
And
just
that's what I mean.
distracting and taking up a slot,
And that's
and you're
what I mean.
distracting with weird energy. You're bringing your weird energy here, and you're going to sleep, but you're leaving your weird energy thick in there. It's like,
Right. And there's conversational, shows, and then there's just like, like Howard Stern, you know what I mean, where it's like people do gross shit, you know what I mean, right? And it's like, you know what I mean? And
It's
like
just
that's kind of
learning
more,
to, I guess, your shows are long enough where you could segment that into different
yeah, that's kind of
parts of the show. But
yeah, that's
I've been
kind of
on your
more
show a
what
few times when you were talking philosophy, and we had some really good conversations for a while. And then a troll would come on at some point, like Smith or somebody, and totally derail it, and then I would
well,
leave.
and then it's fine, because it's like, there's many times on my show where like Smith is not there. So the philosophical conversations are going to continue.
But they have to
Whoever wants.
happen in between the trolls.
Exactly. So,
so
I mean, I mean, to me, that's fine, because the only other option is just, be very, very selective in who you let on,
Yeah, that's
or
that's the
let on.
path I take.
Yeah, that's not
We're
how I.
growing at a slower rate, but I think we're growing at the quality I'm trying to keep it at too.
Yeah,
I would.
that's
I
not
guess I
how.
would just. And I enjoy the chaos too. So don't. I'm just telling. I think that you're overestimating
I know you do. I know
the.
you do.
Well, I mean, because one is louder, right? Like the drama is a louder form of
save
content.
it
It
for
will
yourself.
chase off.
Huh? Wait, what was that?
Drama is a louder form of content, and so
That's what I like.
you need to the since it's a louder form of content mentally, right? Your attention. I'm just saying, if a person drops by your stream on a random and looks at it, the odds of you getting and retaining an intellectual person are small, just mathematically.
But that's exactly who I don't want to be there. I don't want some pseudo intellectual halfwit to be there clowning me and giving me little I'm looking at the nooks and crannies of my philosophy, and then deciding what parts they agree with and deciding what parts they disagree with, and constantly
Well,
posting little questions in the chat.
that's what we
I
do,
really
though. I
You
mean,
want
I do that with you.
people who don't even
That's
you want the power.
intellectual exchange.
Well, you're on a higher level, I think. So I'll engage with your thing.
Oh,
I don't know what happened to Flo, but yeah, I think he's. But yeah,
I mean,
but
that's what most intelligent people are going to come to do. But I know the type you're talking about, like the pompous pseudo intellectual, and they
yeah, like I
probably
don't.
will avoid you because of the drama,
Yeah, I don't
which
want.
is
I
what
don't
you
want a
want.
bunch of. Yeah, I don't want a bunch of quote unquote intellectuals hemming and hawing in there. You know what I mean? That is going to be a nightmare. And not even one troll. I mean,
My
oh my god,
whole
I'm gonna start
show
to miss
is
them. I'm gonna start to
intellectuals with
miss
not
them.
even
Like,
one troll.
yeah, like I don't like constant
Well, we have
trolling,
Joshua Jones and
but to
Hank.
have none is also a problem, because it's like I don't think you're even making an impact then if
Well,
nobody will troll you.
you have to choose your trolls wisely.
Well, see, that's exactly what you don't choose. You don't choose the troll. You don't choose who comes in. You don't choose
Yeah,
like
yeah,
how.
that's the whole function of you as
No,
host and
Flo. No,
curator of
Flo
your
just said.
channel.
No, Flo just said. He just said right before that. He said it's not like you're inviting the people to dinner. You can't control who subscribes to your channel. There's just gonna be people who
No, you
subscribe.
can't control who subscribes, but you can
That's
control who
that's
comes
exactly
onto
what
your
I'm talking
panel
about.
because that affects the energy of that particular
It's gonna
episode.
be the same type of people. It's gonna be the same type of people. It's gonna be the same type of people. We're talking about the same people. The people who subscribe are the people that are gonna come on. Are the people that are gonna watch. Are the people that are gonna troll. It's just the same fucking group of people. You know, and they're not special types of people. They're just people. You know, so you know, the people that troll here are people who are people elsewhere. You know, and the people who are people here are trolls elsewhere. You know what I mean? It's just you know, you know what I mean. One man's interlocutor is another man's troll. You know what I mean? Right? You know what I mean? It really, you know, boils down to. But the thing is that it all just depends what level of conversation you're on. You know, see, nobody's gonna engage with me, you know, as I'll say again, on the level of conversation that I want to engage in. So it's nonsense for me to try to corral them to that. You know,
If you did find those people that could engage you, would you shift your channel to prioritize that over the trolls if there were enough of them?
I would probably be suspicious that they were trolls.
Oh.
I'd be like, so are you guys really serious? Or, you know, you know, see, this is the game though, you know, is that I've formed, you know, extremely tight relationships with people online that have become my interlocutors that have later become my trolls. You don't believe me? You know,
No, I do. You have me rethinking some of my positions. Where does the troll begin?
Yeah, TBE.
The interlocular end.
Me and TBE made hundreds of videos together before he started quote unquote trolling me.
But I mean, the mistake is to think that these are clean, distinct categories, right? The nature of human relationships are dynamic.
I've trolled before. I'm capable of trolling too. So
Sure.
it's not like I'm not.
That's my attitude towards Tommy. Perfect example. Does he troll? Absolutely. Do I troll him? Absolutely. Is that the whole thing? No. I think that we got a more dynamic best friend relationship than that. But
well,
like fucking around with your brother, you know, like I don't know. But I think that I think for me, if I focus on this is a production, right? And what are you bringing to the table? I think that in that vein, I can hold people to a higher standard, and I think I probably will, especially if it's the same issues I've been over with you before 1,000 times, right?
But if you've been over them 1,000
black man
times,
dicks. Go ahead.
That's kind of, if you've been over them 1,000 times, that kind of says something right there.
You're right, it does. But I've also allowed it more. I'm social blind. I'm an SXSP. I don't give a fuck about the social context. I think I've been ignoring the fact that when I have somebody like Sarah on panel, who I like Sarah a lot, and I agree with a lot of her conclusions she's drawn, but then when she says something like, well, I know it because, you know, they were doing voice to skull technology on me. Well, okay. You know, you just sort of scumbagged everybody, you know, unintentionally, but by proxy. And that's a metric I don't care about. Personally, I don't care about it, but I recognize that other people care and that it's a valid care, honestly. It's just not mine.
I'm social blind too. I didn't think about that either. I have the same issue. But I'm not troll blind. That's what lets me.
Sure, because we understand the power dynamics. I just don't view that behavior as something that has an impact on me. But if we're talking
look at the impact it has on the guests that are trying to contribute something more than just trolling. And
well, correct. I mean, absolutely. The fact of the matter is, when we're all sharing a panel together, to a small extent, everybody's presentation does impact everybody else. It's unmeasurable. It's probably minuscule, but it is one that I'm trying to intentionally be more aware of because I'm not naturally.
Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense. I don't know. You've made a pretty good case. I'm gonna experiment with maybe showing up on some of the troll panels. I feel like it's like backsliding and selling
That's because
out.
you're pretentious.
It's not. It's more than pretension, though. I'm one of the least I'm not pretending to be anything fancy at all.
No, I get it. I'm
I
sort of just
have a
giving you shit.
genuine respect for authentic, quality conversation, and I think
And you're
that
not wrong. It is backsliding to a degree, especially since like everybody, even the most upper crusty motherfucker, can enjoy being a low down piece of shit, right? Everybody
roll
has
around
that
in the
part of their
mud.
brain that likes Maury. But we just I try to choose not to engage in that shit personally because I
Yeah, and that's the thing is that when somebody like Denise started sitting there and reading my book, she was embarrassed by the fact that I was, sitting on these panels, because the thing is that, I write on literally the level of like some of these college professors, and I'm not even touting my own like whatever it is, but literally for me to like sit here on these panels and talk to just regular people, I mean, it is what it is, but the thing is that
regular people aren't hearing you though.
yeah,
The Fight Club will not be hearing the message. They'll be waiting. They'll be doing something else until you're done talking, and then they're coming back for the bullshit.
yeah, that's what but the thing is that I don't want to talk to like all of those other people. Like I don't want to talk to people who consider themselves intellectuals, and I don't want to consider myself somebody who like can't talk to regular people. Like I think that this knowledge actually belongs to regular people. So I've taken as much of the shit out of the universities as I can and try to put it back to use by giving it to like regular, I guess, everyday people, or putting it in a way that everyday people can understand, and maybe even the trolls,
Robin
use
Hood.
it. Wait, what'd you say, Flo?
I called you Robin Hood.
Or something like that. But I mean, I kind of want to, take that information and make it palatable. So like that's the thing is that, yeah, I wrote it in this like extremely complex way, but that's not how people talk. People don't talk the way like extremely tight arguments are laid out in like, college style books with like hundreds of sources in them. They just don't talk.
I think that you're overestimating the interest or the capacity of some of the people who want to engage. You know what I mean? Like you have to actually engage your brain to even to get the corners, the basic principles of what you're talking about. You have to actively decide that you want to engage your brain. You can't just passively kind of absorb it and get it.
But that's what I want. I want to be able to hit somebody passively with this shit and just psych jitsu them.
You're trying to just osmosis it into their subconscious.
Exactly. Yeah, just like osmo. Yeah, just like
Yeah, that's exactly that's exactly how I see myself. I mean, the reason I named my thing NeuroJack is literally because like I'm trying to like bypass people's defenses and get them to think about something they don't consciously want to engage in. That's kind of what I'm trying to do, That's why I'm annoying the shit out of everybody.
Interesting how we all are, and I assume Jeff is as well. All people who would just be interested in bypassing people's conscious mind altogether and just reprogramming their subconscious.
No, no, I don't even believe in the subconscious. I'm not trying to program anybody. I don't even want people listening to me. I'm just here for. I'm here for people to have a place to talk, to kind of.
Well, I'll give you. I'll
hear them discover who they are and what they think.
I'll contextualize what I mean. When Bunny on Machine Life said something interesting. He said that we're facing a technological singularity where basically, this technology is going to be able to outsmart, for lack of a better term, human beings. And if human beings don't get aware of like what's going on around them, then human beings are not going to have much choice in what comes. And I think he called it like a human level singularity where we're kind of becoming more aware of what's going on around us. And I think that that's kind of what I'm saying is like if we don't start getting people to like get out of their cage a little bit. And I think people are actually very open to it personally. Like my personal belief is I think people are willing to do that. Not everybody, but more people than we think. And I think that we're all coming at it from different approaches, which is a good thing. I think we're going to kind of see what works and what doesn't work, you know?
What cage are we in? You talking about the internet?
Did I just
Among
hear
others,
Baby
yeah.
Jack?
Yeah, you did. he's like, he wants me to open some kind of candy stuff for him. Here, buddy.
Well, man, open that and then
Yeah, I did.
get that kid addicted
Um,
to sugar like I did mine.
Yeah, well, I'm trying not to. The problem is everybody else is, right? So now I got to
I know.
NeuroJack him and get him back in the fucking line, you know. But I
Yep.
can't scream at him on the call here. So I mean, I could, but it's not the right. I'm just
It's bad. The optics are bad.
yeah, exactly. The optics. I'm trying to keep the optics high, not low. Okay. I'm just no. Well, what I was going to ask you, Flo, is you know, what I noticed is like here's what I want to allude to without getting into detail. If people like if you started actually getting back into politics stuff, for example, and then you notice that some of these people that were chilling on your panel suddenly started like trying to like, for lack of a better term, dox you or something like that, and you're like, wait a second, I thought we were friends. Now you're suddenly trying to, you know, more or less threaten me to shut up about politics. You would take note of that and be like, well, what is this about, right?
Correct.
Right, and I think that that's kind of where me and Machine Labs come from. It's like we talk about like politics or philosophy or technology, and like these people who seemingly don't even know what's going on or care, like they start taking it very, very personal for some reason. And
Well, I mean, the politics or the religion, because I've noticed that especially around ortho bros, but Christians in general tend to be they project their shadow and then attack it on other people, basically.
I have to agree with you. I totally, I definitely think that's a big part of it, and I think that's why like I'm trying to reach out to Christians and say, you guys don't think it's kind of weird that you're pointing out everybody else's bullshit and yet you're still engaging in the same bullshit? And that's, you know, it's like
And I actually resent the fact that I have to, or that I identify them as Christians. Part of me thinks, and I don't actually believe this because I think that they're too stupid collectively, like the ones I'm referring to. But part of me has to wonder: is that intention? Is it a reverse psychology thing? Right?
without getting into detail, I often wonder the same thing, and I think that you could point at many different groups, even you know Republicans or you know libertarians or many other things, but the Christian thing definitely does stand out, you know, to me big time because like I'm one of the least well-read Christian people, yet I can argue apologetics better than a lot of these guys who are claiming to be like educated in it. I'm like, wait a second, why is that? That's pretty weird, right? It's very it's very odd, and like you said, it's like it's almost like they're trying to turn people away from any kind of like real, you know, ethics or something.
But I also have a philosophical answer to my own question. That's why I also don't think it's reverse psychology because just the reality is that the tenets of Christianity are illogical on the most basic level. All of the cornerstones of that religion, and I know that you are, and I'm kind of Christian sympathetic, but it just doesn't make sense. One can't be three, Father can't be Son. These are mutually exclusive terms, and everybody knows that on some level. You have to and people over correct for their insecurities, I suppose. So that's what I chalk it up to.
But Christianity is a mythological truth. It's not factual truth. And on a
Well, and that's another thing. I
all of that
agree.
stuff makes sense.
It's a spirituality, and I think that absolutely. All the a fundamentalist makes a huge mistake in taking it entirely out of context. I believe by trying to treat a spirituality, something that is mystical, as something that's tangible. But you know, most people don't.
I think something that this E. Michael Jones character mentioned on my show this morning, because we were looking at a debate by him, and he actually stated on the show, in a debate that he did on Adam Green show, he said Christianity is a merger of Jewish religion and Greek philosophy. And once you hear it put like that, I think that is a fascinating way to put it, because it's not exactly scientific or mythological in the way that FlowState said, well, scientifically or logically, it kind of doesn't make sense. 3 and 1, 1 and 3, that's BS. And then Gen X Jeff said it's mythological, but Christians don't claim it was mythological. They actually say they'll push very hard against that, and they'll say Jesus Christ was a historical character. And then because of this, if you go to mainline historians, they'll say, actually, yeah, it turns out that there might have been a guy back in the day during this time that was named Jesus. They got killed by the Romans. Or at least they say that.
But he didn't come back from the dead.
Well, no. Of course they don't believe that, because these historians are like atheists, like scientists. But they still claim that he existed, that he was a historical figure, and not merely mythological. Yeah, not merely a mythological figure. So and then in the sense of flow state, where you go, well, 3 and 1 doesn't make sense. Well, they didn't solve that in the way of science. They solved it through Greek philosophy. And if you just look at Greek philosophy, it turns out that 3 and 1 actually do make sense. And the reason is because of Plato.
But you're trying to. I understand what you're saying, but it's still the Trinity tries to cram one God from Judaism into a 3-God paradigm, and ultimately they're mutually exclusive. It does not actually work together.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work unless you go to math. If you go to math, then it turns out that it works. Why? Because of set number theory.
I'm listening.
You know what I'm saying? I can show you this from an episode of my show. I'll send it to you. At some point. Actually, I'll just send it to you in the private chat right now. I did a presentation on this.
I want to see that.
Here's the thing. There might be some sort of quantum math where you can make
exactly
can do a magic trick to make it work.
It's a complex explanation.
But that's not what Christians are doing with it.
Yeah.
But we're talking about entities, right? Is Jesus? Can God forsake Jesus? Why have you forsaken me, Father? So we're not talking about advanced mathematical theories. We're talking about people. Is this 3 people or 1 person?
Well, I'll just say this really briefly, because I think that what Machine Live said is very true, and I just and I think that's why I keep coming to all these people.
Did you cut out?
You'll notice past couple weeks I keep bringing up numbers, because numbers are.
You keep cutting out.
You cut out Flow. Oh.
No.
Well, I was just the only thing I was going to add to the numbers thing. I just wanted to mention as well. They use the Trinity as a proof for that God is literally like the standard of love and all these other things. Like they're saying that love has to be relational, therefore there must be at least 3 things, and so it's kind of like an internal logic thing as well. Like they're trying to merge math and love and
that abstract of a level. They're thinking like Flo said, of a person, Jesus, a person, God.
Well, that's why I think a lot of these Christians are mad at me, because allegedly, I mean, I think you can make a strong argument that it is, but I think that you have to get into hermeneutics, and then when you start asking people sources, then they start. Well, yes, you can say this.
Not all 3 of them together are not there, but they have them in 3 separate places. Like, for example, there's God. There's the
but the identity between the 3, is that biblical, or did that come later?
That came later. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that's why that's why a lot of Christians are getting mad at me, because I'm forcing them to explicate why they're saying what they're saying, and they're saying, well, and a lot of them are saying, well, this is not meant for the lay people. This is meant for this. And Jay Dyer's in trouble because he brings up this stuff, and people, even within the Orthodox Church, are like, this is church secrets. You shouldn't be telling this out externally, right? And so, for that reason, give him credit because he is kind of forcing the conversation out. But then you notice like those people will attack you if you disagree with their interpretation. See what I'm saying? It's like it's this weird
There's
like thing going on where it's like,
yeah, there's ultimately two reasons why he might be doing that. He might be trying to A, subvert the faith, or B, he might be actually afraid of that not enough people are going to know in time if these people remain church secrets. So he's just going to expose them in hopes that more people will join the church, kind of get ahead of the church's work, do some of the church's work for it that it's neglecting to do, but in that he might fail. He might be working against his own
correct,
end in doing that, because he might be giving
correct,
these teachings to a general population that's not ready to understand them and that's not ready to speak on them, and they're going to use it to subvert people.
correct. No, that's exactly right. And I think that that's where I'm trying to find the middle balance between those two things and a couple of other things. Because for me, I think that more people than are aware are ready to have this conversation. But I think that the same what you just said is a lot of people aren't ready, and that you tell them things, they're going to misconstrue it. And that's why a lot of times like I come off as a complete asshole, because it's very hard to, you don't know who we're talking to, right? Like if I have a conversation with you in private or Jeff in private, it's going to be very different than if I'm having a conversation here publicly, right? Like it's because I don't know who's the audience, right? So
Why are you going around trying to piss off Christians if you're Christian?
I'm not. I'm just trying to get them to think outside of the paradigm that they're stuck in, Because, well, and I'll tell you specifically why. Because my personal opinion is, I think a lot of people who are trying to be role models or leadership roles for this are have goals other than what they're stating. And I think that Joshua was bringing that up. See, for Joshua, I disagree a lot with Joshua Jones,
I do too,
but he's
especially
honest.
after the other day.
Well, but he's honest about what he wants, and he's consistent. Same with you. I disagree with you, but you're
I think
consistent.
he's
Same with
honest
Machine
to the
Live.
extent that he's aware of what he wants. I think some of this is
Correct,
depth psychology.
correct. And even with Machine Lives, I'm sure if I learn more about his philosophy or Islam, I'll have more to fight about. But I think that he really means what he says and says what he means. But I'm not sure that I can say that about people who are supposedly wanting the same things as me. Like I think you could classify me as a Christian nationalist, but most almost everybody that I hear talk about Christian nationalism, I completely disagree with. So what does that mean then, right?
I still want to hear Andrew's version of Christian nationalism.
Well, I think that there's
Every time he brings
conflicting
it up, he
narratives.
complains that nobody's actually heard him out on what his version is. So I want him to have the chance to tell us, because he doesn't come out and openly explicate it.
Well, that's exactly what I'm trying to get people to do is like let's lay it out on the table, at least in some limited form, and have people talk about it, at least in whatever limited form. Like I would like to see the Machine Lies version of Christian nationalism, right? Like why don't we get a bunch of Christian nationalists together and hammer shit out, right? Like let's see
if he's
let's come up with our.
How would he have a version of Christian nationalism? No. I would.
Well, here I didn't mean it directly like that, but here's my point that I'm trying to get at. I think that Sharia, something along the lines of what a caliphate looks like in Islam, wouldn't be too far off of what a Christian nationalist platform might look like as well.
Well, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told Joshua. That's not going to happen in the United States. This is a very unrealistic.
Well, none of it's going to happen with technology around. That's kind of the point that I'm also getting at. So then, what are we talking about?
Even without technology, I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, I don't think they believe in actually fundamentally changing the power structure, because they believe in capitalism and democracy. Some of them.
Well, not Joshua version doesn't. Capitalism, yes. Democracy, no. He won't say theocracy.
Some of them believe in that we should take it back to a monarchy, or something like that. Yeah. So there is a sliver of them that say we should take it back to divine right of kings or something like that. But that is a kind of a very small minority. The really quite serious ones that are actually going to have an impact, they only believe in creating parallel institutions to the government. So they believe like the church should like watch certain communities. They should like control marriage laws, that the church and the state should have a good relationship, and that they should both be kind of civil institutions, that take over certain care and management of societal affairs. So they only
man.
want a church to rise up as a parallel institution that's as powerful as the state.
It's not going to happen.
Well, if they just say that okay, they rewrite the Constitution and they say this is a Christian country, right? And they
Yeah,
say,
but they're never going to have the numbers to get the power to do that. Much less, they're not going to get all Christians on the same page about Christianity.
of
with
course,
all of the different denominations and factions of Christianity in the United States.
Even if they don't get even one person in office, it's just like a BLM or something like that, or Occupy Wall Street or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
Like it'll come in and make this grand impact, or like Ron Paul or something like that, where like they don't get into office, but they make this giant enough sway,
I don't think they can make a giant
people to this side, well, I mean, what's a giant? I mean, 1% of 350 million is like a lot of people.
I mean, they have every right to make the attempt, and I support them advocating for their political vision, as I would anybody in a liberal society. But I just don't think their ideas are going to win out.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I'm trying to actually like help them see where the rubber would meet the road. At least before, that's what I was trying to do, because I was thinking like, well, you can't just make it focus on orthodoxy, because there's no way you're going to convert the United States to an orthodox predominant anytime in the next, very long time, unless something major happens. First of all. Second of all, you would need to actually go and infiltrate the churches in a positive way and make them pillars of the community, number one. Number two, you would have to go into your local community governments and do the same thing there, at least to some limited fashion. And then from there, you'd have to have, some larger strategy from there forward, right? Like, but if you can't even get control of your own church, and your own church is corrupted, how are you going to manage a country or manage the world, for that matter? You see what I'm saying? Is like, it doesn't really make sense unless you're willing to do something along those lines. And again, I think that they're missing the technology side, because, and even more importantly than that, they can't even get their hermeneutics to be agreed upon. So then it's like, well, what is Christianity? And this is why I respect Joshua Jones. When I asked him, I said, don't you think that the first thing that's going to happen if anything approaching Christian nationalism comes into power, the first thing that's going to happen is all the Christians are going to slaughter each other? He's like, yeah, exactly. And then I said, well, what if we have a monarchy and that monarch is corrupt? He's like, well, that's why I'm 100% no mercy on my own side, including all the way up to the king, where if they get out of line, whoever gets out of line is gone and eliminated. And I was like, well, why is that? He's like, because I know how these things work, where you let one thing go in a system, whether it's the government, the military, the State Department, whatever, secret society. He admitted all this, and he said, if you don't lay down the law consistently 100% of the time, you will just always have corruption. At least that's consistent. And he's an atheist saying that. See what I'm saying? It's like, and I asked, and I asked him, I said, don't you recognize that you would weaken your own Christian nationalist side if you just start slaughtering 2/3 of your people? He's like, yeah, I know, but the fact is like, whoever's left will be purified. So he sees himself as a purifier.
He's a bloodthirsty tyrant.
So he wants a purification.
Very naive for somebody with the masters in psychology.
When he admits even himself would be gone. That's but
that's why he's ridiculous. He's loony.
He opts for political suicide. Like,
yes.
Literally. Like,
no, exactly. But that's exactly what I'm saying. Is like, the truth is, I think that all these guys are kind of in the same camp, where they're like committing political suicide. Sorry to say that word. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But they're committing political deletion on them on their own movement. And I have to ask, is that on purpose or is that whatever? And again, they look at Islam as the enemy, but Islam is going through the same fucking problem that Christians are going through. So it's like,
I didn't realize they looked at Islam as the enemy. Is
I
that
think
even a big threat here in the U.S.?
well, it's just
I,
funny
I
because
I would see secularism more as an enemy than Islam.
yeah,
they
I think
don't. They don't.
I think it's a group of people, and it depends on which group you're talking about. For each one of these groups, it's usually some combination of Muslims, liberals, Jews, and also some type of other Christian group, that are all in the
Oh,
mix
right.
of who needs to go. You know what I mean? Or whose power needs to be cut down in the country or whatever. So for all of these groups, it's one or another type of these groups. And they all have their own idea about who's a Muslim, who's a liberal, who's a Jew, and who's a bad Christian. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So,
Well, and,
so
and this is where they get mad at me, because I'm saying, why don't you fix your own house first, your own community first, and then go from there? But they're like, no, 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 no. Let's run to the finish line and work our way backwards. And I'm like, well, what in history has ever worked that way? I mean, I don't know what that is, but so for me, that's where they think that I'm like controlling, trolling them or
yeah,
whatever they think. I don't know, but
yeah, and that's the reason why I haven't opened up with and I have a little bit, opened up and talked about some of the different Muslim groups, in the country, and how they are absolutely 100% in support of all of these quasi liberal doctrines. They're inundated with all sorts of liberal ideologies, secular forms and adaptations in their ways of life, and they're basically corrupt from the inside out. They have nothing to do with Islam. They don't follow Islam at all. They don't know what Islam's about at all. But anytime anybody insults Islam or shows a picture of the Prophet Muhammad or something like that, they burn down a fucking Starbucks or something like that. So it just doesn't even comport with anything. It's like they're a bunch of morons who act like apes, and are basically ready to support secular liberalism, the humanities and sciences and all of that stuff until it goes against something, and says, well, that means that we get to draw whatever we want. We get to draw whoever we want, however we want. We get to
no.
talk about whatever we want. And they go, no, 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 no. Well, you can't do that. And you go, why? So this is the problem, is that Muslims want to say we accept everybody until it comes down to everybody saying that they don't accept Muslims, and then they start crying about it. So these Muslims are a bunch of bitches, is what I found out. And they're not actually real Muslims. You know what I mean? They're just secular humanists, with turbans on their head or whatever the fuck they are.
Do you
And
think
that's
it's a reaction to wokeness, like Flo's saying? The Christian nationalism, or was it around before?
well, that machine feels about Muslims. I mean, I think that a lot of these people are LARPing because they don't want to look in the mirror, and that's my personal. And I think that, yeah, I think it's an overreaction to make people feel like they're doing something when they're not doing shit. Personally, like that's what I
And
think it is.
yeah, and these Muslims will go so far as to claim that Islam is responsible for science, for the scientific revolution. You gotta be fucking kidding me. You know what I mean? Right? They'll go so far as to take credit for like Einstein and stuff. And they'll be like, yeah, if there was no Islam, there'd be no Einstein and stuff. Like, give me a break.
as if it's a good thing or something, right? It's like
As if like, oh yeah. It's like, why should you take credit for that?
well, and I'll take it even a step further. Go ahead.
No, it's just be yourself. Is all I'm trying to say.
Well, exactly, and I think for me, it's like I don't mind people criticizing me, as a human being or even as a Christian, because it's like, okay, I'm not perfect. That's why I'm a Christian, so I'm okay with that, right? But but then these people are like, they give you a category called Christian, and then it's like, well, some were allowed to criticize and others were not, and it's like they make this like distinction without describing, okay, well, what's the distinction? And I'll take it a step further regarding the politics versus conspiracy versus religion. A lot of these people who are concerned with the with the depopulation agenda or whatever, the WF or whatever they have a concern with, A, they don't want to look at technology as part of the problem, and B, they don't see that all the shit that they're doing is basically justifying those ends because they're not actually willing to
And I'll tell you,
clean their own
I'll tell you
house.
how deep. I'll tell you how deep the problem is. One day, I really dropped my hat because I turned on this show and I heard Gen X Jeff said he left the Satanic Church because they follow a woke agenda. And I said, well, there we go.
The Satanic Temple is
I was
definitely
like,
woke.
so like even the Satanist is dealing with this problem.
Yeah.
Like every religious tradition, even the occult tradition is dealing with this fucking problem.
Yeah.
That technology and liberalism are so powerful that they're even spreading into the every single religious tradition, even the anti-tradition. I mean, it's crazy.
Every single group and community, not even the religions, every community that I'm involved in has been split by wokeness or social justice.
Go watch a kid's soccer game, and you'll see like half the kids are not even interested anymore. They want to get done with soccer so they can go play on the phone, right? Like it's not, like it's hard to get people to even like get out of their own head. I mean, my kid's only 3 years old, and it's like
The Satanic Temple is. There are some denominations that are, and individuals like me. Especially like the Church of Satan, which is older. I think it's less woke. Yeah.
Well, and look at your local cities and look at the people who become bureaucrats or get those cushy, parks and rec jobs or whatever you want to say. It's like they're a bunch of weak people. And the thing is like, I don't really like the government in general, but I'm saying if we're going to have one, why not have it occupied by good, upstanding people? See what I'm saying?
Why don't you like the government if you're a part of?
Well, what I'm saying is, I think that it's easy to corrupt because the people are easy to corrupt.
Yeah, but
right?
anything's easy to corrupt because people are easy to corrupt. That's human nature.
Of course, but what I'm saying is, if something has authority over you as a citizen, then you better take better care of that than the general society, right? Like, it should be cleaner than.
Yes, else. You're right. I would agree, and we have a process for taking care of it.
No, exactly, and that's my point. Is people aren't willing to go to the local city councils or get their friends and family who they trust, or at least someone they have leverage on, into those positions. But they'll sit there and complain all day about Biden, who they have basically zero control over. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like they're self-defeating, and like I hear it all the time on these panels of like people who are
I do too,
on and on and on, like complaining about shit about this really big topics. And I get it, I've been there for a long time, but I'm just saying it's like I think it's a function rather than a bug that this is the situation that we find ourselves in, right? Like, we're not taking action towards anything. And again, I think that the technology is the big elephant in the room that people are just not looking at. But I think also just the fact that we're not getting involved in little things that would make a big difference on a macro scale. Like,
even before technology, though, most people I know were not very political or involved in anything beyond.
Sure, but
their immediate interests were.
But what I'm saying is the stakes are getting exponentially higher every day. Is kind of what I'm getting at. Like, the stakes are going to get so high where it's like if you're not looking at it, then you're just going to get run over.
How are you measuring that?
Well, the fact that you and I grew up with a house phone and now everybody has a supercomputer in their hand is a pretty good, example. Of
what stakes does that raise?
You're not really.
I would worry about specific things like maybe TikTok and the effect it's having on the new generation.
Well, you and I had a whole discussion about this about an hour and a half ago about how the medium becomes the message essentially, right? Like, how do
Well,
we
I was
really
just
measure the
well,
effect?
I was just talking about this on my show earlier today, that if they actually were able to combine any two of the newest cutting edge technologies, one of the top ones that they can think of is a combination of nanotechnology and pharmacogenomics, which seems not very far away. If they can create little nano machines, which they've essentially done, and they can create synthetic genes, which they've essentially almost done, then they can essentially go in and do things like create a designer baby, which they've essentially already done. If it's possible to create something like that, I think we're dealing with huge social, psychological changes. Right now, those babies that they have, they're being studied in a lab. They're living their life in a laboratory. You know what I mean? So that is a fact of the matter. You know what I mean? That somebody invented a technology, and somebody said, well, we better make sure that nobody uses it to do X, Y, and Z. Oh, too late. Somebody already just did. Now we'll have to study it in a lab. You know what I mean? Right? And see how
Yeah,
it goes.
I can see stuff like that. I guess it's less of a concern for me because that's going to be way beyond my lifetime. But
And
I
that's
can
just
see
one example. That's
potentially
just
being
only one
concerned
example.
about designer
Yeah.
babies and artificial wombs and test tube.
Yeah, that's just only one example. And but it goes to a very clear kind of
What Jack says right here, the disconnection from our own body. Yes. Yes. I think that probably is the biggest danger
yeah,
currently. It is taking us out of our body. We see that with the trans phenomena too. And identity is becoming virtual and ultra subjective and
yeah,
disconnected from any physical grounding.
psychosomatic detachment is a a symptom of postmodern identity. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? And the residue of postmodern identity, that we're all functioning within. If you read the work of Baudrillard and all these guys, they actually talk about that.
The
They talk about
simulacra.
he has a paper on trans identity in which he kind of says a similar thing.
And the
That
transhumanists too are trying to transcend
that's exactly what it is.
physicality.
That's exactly what it is. They're trying to transcend the definition, and it's about evolution.
I just think good luck with that. I don't think it's realistic. You're not gonna. You are your body.
Well,
Yeah.
and I guess what I was trying to get at earlier, I was trying not to jump ahead, but I'll just say this as a general thought to keep in mind of what I'm trying to get at, and what I think a lot of us are talking about is like, what does it mean to be a human? And I think the more and more you progress along this line, it's like, you know, I just use the example like my grandparents again. Like, it's, they grew up, farming on a farm with, maybe access to a phone once a day or something, right? If that, right? And then now, you can pretty much be on the phone 24/7 and not even have to leave your house for years at a time, basically, right? And just because you can doesn't mean that you ought to. And even if you say, well, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter for an individual. It's like, that's what I was saying before. It's like the collective. If 99% of people are doing something, or even 50%, or even 15%, or even 1% are doing something, because of the connectivity, you're going to have to pay those prices collectively. And I think that another example I would use is like something like the insurance system, right? I think the idea of insurance is great, but the problem is people are corrupt, and the government's corrupt, and you can mix those two corrupt institutions together, and it's like, for me to have insurance for, me and my family, if I were to pay full price, it would be $1,200 a month just to have it. And I don't even know if it's illegal or not to not have insurance, but whether it is or not, the point is, like, now you associate a cost to have all access to all these great inventions that technology has brought us. So it's like, the point is, like, now you're on the hook. You see what I'm saying? Now they got you on the hook, and you don't have access. And Machine brings up the point about alienation. Like, you're not really aware of what it is or where it came from. And even the people who invented the technology and who are doctors and surgeons, like, they just use the tools, but they don't really care where it came from or where it's headed to. And so, because we're all compartmentalized in our own little specialities, right? So my point is, like, the further and further we get along, it's going to get more and more atomized, right? And I think that we're handling it pretty well, to be honest with you. But I think as we progress further and further, being able to measure how well we're actually able to manage it is going to get so far. It's going to get so far from our perception that we're not going to really know if what we're seeing on the TV or the internet is even any connection at all to reality. There could be a war tomorrow.
Like now with social media. I saw that with Israel-Palestine.
Yeah, I mean, there could be a war where Russia and China wipe each other out tomorrow. And as far as we know here, because of our phones and technology, we would never know, potentially.
Well, I'm
at a
sure
certain
something
point,
like
right?
that we would.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, if they just get rid of plane transportation over the next couple of years for whatever
And China
reason.
could wipe each other off the map and hide it from the rest of the world.
If technology gets to a certain point where everything that we know comes from the screens, absolutely, it's possible. I'm not saying it's. I'm just giving an extreme example to illustrate the point.
We actually don't really know, like, what is gonna happen to somebody if they communicate 10 years to somebody through a screen, where they see their face and emote with them in real time, but they're not actually face to face with them. Where they're not interpreting their, like, full scale of their body language and mixed in with their environment. Just the dislodging of that feeling, and the psychosomatic detachment of that feeling and the psychological impact of that feeling over prolonged periods of time. It might change our complete emotional state. I mean, look at how already people are reacting to in real life as if they were online, or they're having being coached by their online interactions or through the screen, how to interact in real life, and they're doing all sorts of mischaracterizations. And it's just like how you invent something, you can't put it back in the box. It's like those little remember those little micro beads that they came in the, like, the little where they had, like, lotions and stuff, where they had the beads that you would rub on your skin or something. They would help you exfoliate. They're like little tiny plastic beads that they had, like, in the in, like, toothpaste and stuff. Yeah, they had, like, these little micro beads
In toothpaste?
yeah, like, they had them, like,
That
in
sounds
different
gross.
things, in, like, lotions and toothpaste. They had, like, micro beads, and these things would go through the faucet, and they just end up, like, going through the water supply. They were super, like dense material, so, like, they just go through, like, and they just end up, like killing, like, hundreds of fish. So once they end up in the water supply. And it's the same thing with those PCBs. People are using this stuff to cook with fire retardants, stuff that gets passed through, it's going to stay in the environment for, like, hundreds of years, with these PCBs. And, like, that's the type of stuff that I get obsessed with. It's like, it's like we're creating hundreds of these little dangers, and we're creating this mental AIDS, in a way.
We've been doing that.
Yeah.
That's just what this amount of humans living on one planet does. There's
Well,
going to be some externalities.
Well, but I'll give you a brief, not rebuttal, but just contextualization that I think matters. Like,
well, I just want to say real quick before you do that, it's the technology that facilitated the growth in population. It's not the population that requires the technology. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to mention real quick, like they always talk about how like gasoline and fossil fuels, whatever that means, is damaging the earth, for example. And I say, okay, well, let's take that as an example. Human beings, at because of the way that we grew to this level, is why we're dependent on it. But you could have 6 billion people, you know, sustained on the earth without fossil fuels, but it would happen very, very slowly
That's
over
the
a long
thing.
period of
Yeah,
time, right?
yeah, that's the thing. With the current stage of technology, you have to have basically 99% of the world, like live with less technology. Because if you wanted to give everybody the same amount of technology that they have in the advanced countries, you wouldn't have enough resources on the planet. So there's not a way to support the population on the planet where everybody gets the same level, gets to use the same level of technology with billions of people on the planet.
Right, and I think that what I say to these conservatives and Christians and all these people who are like, well, the WF is bad and all this, it's like, well, regardless if you think it's evil or bad, the way they're going about it, the general idea of what they're telling you has some truth in it. And so if you are not willing to present a better option to peacefully do that, well, then what options are going to be left on the table? And that's kind of what I'm trying to get across to these people, is like, you can be against it all day, but the problem is going to exist whether you want to address it or not. I'm not saying that climate change in and of itself is what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is, whatever you want to uh, call it, what Machine Live just said right there is kind of the problem that we're going to have to look at. So if you don't want to see the worst case scenario, then you have to start formulating a better one. And technology can't be the end all be all solution of that. Like, you're going to have to find uh, a lower tech solution, if you get my meaning, right? Like, you're going to have to
What
find a way to measure that out
I
a
don't go
little bit.
looking for problems, so I don't see all these worst case scenarios. That there's no reason to assume that the worst case scenario is the scenario that's going to happen, and you can look for problems about anything. So I deal with the problems as they show up in my life more
Well,
than
well, well,
sit around in
do,
my room and think of future problems to
do
start
you?
solving.
Well, sure, but here's what I'm saying. Do you think that what Machine Live said there about there's not enough resources to give everyone an equal share of what's
There never has been,
right? So,
and
but
that's one of the woke arguments.
right, but what I'm saying is, if they start getting technology for life extension, where you can live 500 years without being sick,
They can.
and
I don't know if that.
1% of people want that for themselves, and the other 99% kind of figure out that that's available, and they're not going to get it ever. I'm
I
just
wouldn't
saying, like,
assume ever.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you where it can be from without looking at future problems or the grand picture of things, and just looking at our personal lives, because we talked about the fact that technology causes this psychosomatic detachment, this lack of
Hmm.
definition between yourself and others, and the shifting sense of self, lack of definition within oneself, causing all sorts of attention deficit, multiple personality disorder, transsubjective thinking, all of that type of stuff, promotion of these things. Well, at the very least, I think we could say that a sort of first of all, awareness in when we're using these tools. So like the first thing I would say is like a sort of mental hygiene, which is like, okay, well, like, let's just say, like, there's certain things that there's certain objectives we have when we engage with these tools that we want to go on and then use them and then get off of them. you
Part
know
of that is for me is is avoid the trolls. But if you
well
want to
well
talk mental hygiene, but that's absolutely something I could support. That's something very practical, I
Well,
think,
well,
and
no,
useful.
well, no, well, no. As I discussed before, it's practically impossible for me because I'm trying to run the show. but the
But doing the self-care you need between shows to maintain
Men-
your mental hygiene.
exactly. That's what I mean by mental hygiene. It's not what you're doing when you're using the technology. It's what you're doing when you're not using the technology is mental
Or it can
hygiene.
be both.
Well,
Using the technology responsibly, I think, can be
yeah.
a part of it.
That comes in with the first thing I said, which is the awareness of how you're using the tools.
Yes.
So you have to have awareness, meaning that when you engage with the medium, you realize what you're engaging with. You
Yes.
realize that this is a device. I'm talking to people through a machine, and that this machine is only giving me part of
And it lies.
the interaction. Exactly. Exactly. It's giving me a filtered version of this interaction. So we have to be aware of what it's filtering in and out, and what we're actually getting from the other side. And then the mental hygiene is choosing when we're going to engage with the technology, meaning that putting your cell phones and your computers and all of your stuff away so that you're not constantly looking at notifications, so it's not constantly invading your mind space. You know what I mean?
Yes. That's so hard. But
So you can go outside. You don't have to look at the phone. You don't have to engage with the phone. You can walk outside, talk to your family, and the best way to do that is to schedule your interactions that you have on these devices. Like back in the day, people say, I'll meet you at the coffee shop at this fucking time. And motherfuckers would show up at that time because it's like, you're not gonna get a call from me later. Or I'm gonna send you a letter and you'll get it months later. Be like, where were you at the coffee shop at 9 p.m. on on the 28th, of October, you cocksucker.
No, that's exactly, and that's funny. That's kind of what Jeff and I were talking about earlier. Like just me being able to write letters in my teens completely changed the course of my life, right? And then also, and then phone calls and like I would not be where I'm at right now had I not been writing letters at 12 years old to people here and where I live currently, right? Like that totally changed the course of my life. Now, um, and that's kind of what I was saying about the medium becomes the message in some way because it changes the way you communicate. And like you said about using the technology responsibly, right? I think also like this is kind of a litmus test that's being given to us by whoever or whatever is creating this technology of like how we use it depends on how the technology is going to use us to some degree. And if we're not useful to the technology, well, don't be surprised if we get run over by it. It's kind of also what I'm saying, or by the people that are in control of it as well. And I think I know that sounds kind of, psychotic or mental illness, what I'm saying, but I think, I know Machine gets what I'm saying, but I think what I'm saying is, if you're playing with a big giant bonfire, do so carefully, especially when you have the ability to burn everything else around you.
I just don't see it as a bonfire. Or if it's a bonfire, I've been playing with it for 30-something, over half my life. And it's not been that big of a danger. But I absolutely agree with what Machine's saying.
Well,
The ability to disconnect when you need to and touch grass and have real life experiences with other humans and do that mental hygiene and self-care.
I'll give you an example really quick. Go to China and see how many trees are still left standing. Why? Because they tried to industrialize so quick, and people tried to resist it for so long that they just cut all the trees down and use it for their wood stoves because they didn't have an electric system that could heat their homes. See what I'm saying? Like,
But how does that apply to technology today? Like, what's the analogy to the technology we're using?
Well,
And speaking of technology, and
if children are growing up with a cell phone in their hand, if children are growing up with a cell phone in their hand, and 100 years ago they grew up on a
we grew up
farm
with a TV and a telephone
with
and
a
Atari
with a
and
hammer
Nintendo.
and a sickle in their hand. See what I mean? It's like
We're not
very
going
different.
back though. So that's just the reality we have to adjust to. And parents can manage their kids' phone time.
Sure. Well,
Like,
I'm just saying, don't.
I think that starts with the parent. It starts in the home.
Sure. All I'm saying is don't be shocked when 50% of humans are not reproducing and they're committing deletion on themselves because they hate they're unhappy and they don't know why. See what I'm saying? Like that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like we don't know the consequences of what we're doing, and we won't know until it's far too late to change it. Like you said, like we can't change it, but
Yeah, so for that reason, I don't have any particular doom scenario that I assume.
sure. Well, and neither is anybody else. But I'm just saying that's kind of the problem. Like we're just
I'm
kind
not
of
a catastrophe. I'm not a climate catastrophist, and I'm not a tech catastrophist. I can't say, "Oh my God, the worst thing that could possibly happen is what might happen, and I should worry about it."
yeah.
I, I,
Well,
try,
I
I
mean,
try to be more realistic based on what I've observed of
Well,
the.
the issue, the real issue is not the catastrophe element of it. It's just that the technological world is so interconnected that any part of the system that really faces a problem, it really will kind of spread like a virus, like throughout the whole thing at this point. So that's kind of the real issue is like if you have like a collapse at like any one part, like like for example, you can have a collapse in terms of, you know, economic, you can have one in terms of, digital, systems, some type of computer virus. You can have all sorts of different types of, issues, even people inventing new dangers, so getting ahead of it, people inventing new dangers and stuff like that. So the type of problems that are possible now have never been possible before. That's kind of the main issue is that whereas before we were not looking at global scale issues, we are now actually looking at several issues that have become global scale. But back then, any country or like one invention or something like that, like it's not going to have like an impact that's going to affect like the whole world like the Stuxnet like virus did. You know what I mean? Right, where it's like, oh, they just accidentally unleashed a virus, and then it's on its own. It's doing its own thing. It's like, oh yeah, like that can happen. And it's an unanticipated danger once you invent something that you don't really you invent things as a predictable risk. You know, and that totally puts the precautionary principle out of the window, and that puts morals and ethics completely out of the window. It's just, you know,
I, I don't know how it puts morals and ethics completely out of the window because I think a lot of that is tied to human nature, and I don't know how much technology actually has changed human nature. I see the same caveman nature on these streams that you'd probably see back in the jungle millions of years ago.
because cavemen didn't have international systems. like they did partake in, like global economies.
well,
But
look,
but even with our technology and our global economy, everything, our human nature seems to have persisted in the same state that it's
Of
always been
course,
in.
of course, of course, of course. It's the same humans. They're just partaking in problems on a larger scale. It's the same.
Yeah, but I think that's always been the case.
No,
Like
no, it
human
absolutely
human
hasn't been.
civilization is facing new problems as they
Well,
emerge through
well,
new
there's
inventions
been
and new technology. We're just
well,
seeing
there
a
there's been something of a world culture emerging between Africa and Asia and Europe and you know, um, uh, um, Asia and the Middle East, but that was only half of the world. Now we're talking about the whole damn world, a worldwide system. That has been hitherto unforeseen. You know, not in caveman times, never before. We never had that before, as far as I know. Maybe there's like theories that they had like Atlantis or something like that. I don't know. You know what I mean? Right? Back in the
I mean, we've had microcosms of that with like Rome and Hellenistic society, where like global.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But yeah, not to this scale. But there's I don't draw the same
there.
implications from that. I think that you and Jack did.
Yeah. We're talking about Rome on steroids. We're talking.
Yeah.
Imagine if Rome, like America, had military bases in over 200 countries on Earth. And then I mean they'd go, wow. You know what I mean you go back to the Roman Empire and explain that to somebody in Rome, they'd be like, that's pretty fucking impressive right there. That's amazing. How did you get that? And the answer would be technological power, my friend. Technological power is how the fuck.
I also see it as something for future generations to work out. I mean, we're globalizing, but it's going to happen over generations, and they're going to be much better positioned to figure out the best way to make it happen than I am.
And to be fair, they probably are trying to figure out ways to firewall things. But what I'm saying is, if the collective of human beings don't take little actions to firewall themselves and their communities a little bit in conjunction with whatever the people ruling things are, I don't think it's going to happen. And because the amount of control that ring of power is offering to human beings, like we said, human nature hasn't changed. I don't think that people are really going to want to give up that power if they're in control of it, and much less if humans lose control of it as well, right? And I think I had this thought last night. I was thinking, technology is the ultimate pyramid scheme, because you're never going to run out of problems that you can fix with the thing that gave you the problem, which is technology. So it's like a self-reinforcing problem that you're always going to have to continue finding solutions to the problem. What do you mean by that?
It's a series of problems and solutions. Technology creates problems that more technology comes along and solves, which creates problems which more technology comes along and solves. But it's been that way for thousands of years.
Is that sometimes, like, we have to start learning that sometimes the solutions are worse than the problems, or else we're gonna keep building on,
Yeah, but it's trial and error every time as we go.
Of course,
it's a process. It's not anything we can definitively solve. And I don't see the centralization of power that I think Jack sees either. Not currently. Maybe a few centuries from now, there may be some global centralization of power, but I don't see it currently to worry about.
Well, that's the thing, is that since we have these large scale technologies, now at first, when they were on a statewide scale, when a state would take control of them, like factories and stuff, then they were actually centralizing, meaning that the state would start to control monopolies, and banks and all of this type of stuff would fund these factories and stuff. But now that's gotten out of fashion, because now there's a global economy, and there's international trade, mainly because of communication and transportation technologies, and that global trade, it can't possibly be controlled by state power. So they can't limit the influence of these things. So now technology, since it's on a global scale, has an inherently decentralizing effect. So it's just inherently decentralizing. So you can't develop, centralized control in terms of, it's even gone to eclipse, national power, in a sense that, there's corporations who produce technologies that are that have GDPs that are more that are bigger than countries. Like Boeing is like more powerful than like nation states, because it's like,
so is Silicon Valley.
Yeah, so it just goes to show, it's like, it's like Amazon and Boeing are like more, imagine if Amazon and Boeing made their own like country, or their own government,
Well, and also it's impossible to detect who and what could be in charge of the system or not in charge of the system. And that's kind of what I say to people. It's like,
We are. People are. We are in charge of the system.
well, I tend to agree to some level, but that's kind of what I'm getting at is like if people aren't acting as if they're in control of their own lives and their own systems and their own communities, which people are not, in my opinion, you know, then it's just going to basically be, well, wherever the river flows is where it's going to go. But I just don't think that that's, you're always going to have people who don't want to have any control over what they're doing, and they're okay with that. Um, but
So
I
I
just
worry about
think,
those.
but I think that keeping that in mind, I think that's kind of why we're being, that's kind of why there's so much entertainment now because people, whoever is controlling the system is smart enough to know. Like, I'll give you an example just to illustrate what I'm getting at. If
There's
you just get rid
nobody
of porn,
controlling the system. Machine even just said it's decentralized.
sure, yes, but let me give you an example. Like people say that porn is a problem, right? Well, my point is, if you take away porn tomorrow, you're gonna have a bunch of uh, angry, pissed off men with no
With no
outlet,
imagination.
with no imagination, no outlet, and no whatever. So the unintended consequence of that is going to be difficult, at least for a period of time, right?
Yeah, I think they're just gonna find porn somewhere. They're gonna find some outlet that.
Sure. I mean, they might go outside and watch the clouds and jerk off, or they
Yeah.
might find a different, more destructive way of getting their rocks off, right? You see what I'm saying? Like,
Maybe, but what? Like
Did
this is the kind of speculation that I don't find productive because you could
Did
come
you
up with
ever
any kind
watch?
of scenario.
Did you ever watch that No Maps for Your Territories NeuroJack that I sent you with the William Gibson documentary?
I know I watched some of it, but I don't think I finished the whole thing. But
I
I
think
should
I think
definitely watch the whole thing and clip it up.
I think me, you, and Jeff and Chris should go in that stream that inside of the Discord and watch that.
Oh
Because
yeah, let's do that one day.
that
I
is
have
such
a
a
Nietzsche documentary I've been wanting to stream too.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, yeah, because I think we could watch some really good documentaries in there instead of
I
maybe if
think
we.
Chris is traveling today, but I think he's going to be back tomorrow, so he should be
Okay,
around.
nice. Yeah, maybe tomorrow we'll set that up because because that documentary has a bunch of interesting things and and one of the interesting things it has in it is like this porn from the Civil War, where it's like paintings. It's kind of funny to look at, but it's like. These guys who went to war had this porn.
Well, no, exactly, and that's actually one point I was trying to bring up with Joshua, but I didn't get a chance to when he was on the stream. Was you want to eliminate degeneracy, but how are you going to send all these men away to war with no sex and no potential future and no whatever? It's like your fighting force is going to fall apart.
He's not living in the real world.
No, but I know, but this is what I'm getting at is people are running headlong into solutions without actually thinking about the unintended consequences. And I think that this is kind of what I'm getting at. Is like we're the same, like I said about technology. We have a problem, we fix the problem, but we're not thinking about like the general direction that we're headed in. See what I mean? Like that's what I'm trying to get at.
I think many people are. I don't think it's true that nobody's thinking about.
Well, not enough people, in my
Like
opinion.
we made people on the panel may not be, but it's not my role to do that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, well, to some degree, it is for sure.
I mean, people even with something like AI, I see people attempting to do that and think more carefully before unleashing.
Well, there's no doubt
AI
about
on the world.
there's no doubt that AI is going to make human work unnecessary, at least within a certain framework or view of it, right? And so, if people are just going to accept that as par for the course, don't be surprised when 90% of people are just not around anymore out of either getting in the way of that or causing a problem to that or whatever, because people will.
What the AI is going to kill people, like remove people?
No, but people might defend that system because they're willing to die for their convenience rather than die for their freedom. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
I don't have the imagination you do. I think that's.
Did you guys hear about the robot rampage?
No.
No, I didn't.
Like there was something about Elon Musk, like there's a robot that had a rampage, like in his like factory. Or
No,
something.
probably was a robot dog.
Yeah, I think it was like
Those
one of
things
those.
are scary.
Yeah, I heard something about it, but yeah.
By the way, y'all, Talcott is streaming now.
Okay, yeah, I'm actually gonna go and support his stream right now.
If y'all want to go over
So,
there, I might.
yeah.
Tarek is on right now, and
Oh,
he's
great.
the only one. But
Yeah, that's okay.
so
See,
far,
this
there's
guy-
no trolls.
Well, Tarek's a troll.
Yeah, he's one of the fake Muslims I'm talking
Well,
about.
yeah, but he's not obnoxious like Snefu or Tommy.
He can be, honestly. He's just like
You haven't seen enough.
Yeah,
Maybe not.
Um,
Put the link for.
Yeah, and I'll jump off here as well. It was a good stream, Jeff. I had another brief point that I want to bring up, but I forgot. But I remember. Elon Musk said that you can also get to Mars with shrooms. So I don't know if he's trying to tell us something or what. But
Maybe he was joking. Maybe that's one of his weird autism jokes.
well, he might be telling us a little something else there. But no, we if you missed the beginning of the stream, we were talking about shrooms at the beginning of the stream. But
yeah, hear my insight and wisdom into
Yeah,
psychedelics.
I'm taking those. I'm on another monthly run.
He told me about the chocolate bar. You have
Yeah, the
chocolate bars there?
Yep, the chocolate bars. Yep.
yeah, I'll actually want to talk to you in private about that machine because I'm kind of I'm considering it, but I haven't done. I've only done shrooms once in my life, and it was it wasn't enough to really know what I was getting into. So, but yeah. Anyways, you guys have a good day. I'll probably see you guys later today. I got to do some stuff before too late. So.
Okay, I might stop by Talcott just to give it a whirl, and we'll be here tomorrow. Maybe Chris will be back. So
nice. Okay. So
Yeah, see you guys there.
we'll figure out that movie maybe tomorrow or at some time. But yeah, all right, Jeff, you have a blessed one now. Yeah, it was great talking to you.
As always, good talking.
Yeah, great
Jack,
conversation. Bless you. Yeah. Talk to you soon.
Alrighty, that's the show for today. We might go over to Jack Talcott stream and go crash his panel and kick up some chaos. And we'll be back tomorrow, 2 p.m. Central. So see you then. Take care.